Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the story about what if Naruto absorbed the Shinju and became God? Naruto x Highschool DxD. Before I start the video, please subscribe the channel for more fanfiction video and please share this video with your friends. This story was written by Mickey Mouse Caramel. With any more interruption, let's start the video. The Tale of Naruto Uzumaki. Yes, that has a nice ring to it. Jiraiya 1 may often wonder how one achieves the position of godhood. What had one done to achieve the exalted position and how much of their life was changed? This was the story about the so-called biblical God. How he came to be and how his deeds changed much of the world that once was. It was during a terrible war where our story began. Madara Uchiha, a mad megalomaniac, had planned to hypnotize the whole world via the power of the tailed beasts and the reflection of the moon. What the crazy long black-haired man had not expected was for Naruto's left eye to suddenly turn light purple with its associated ripple patterns, removing all traces of his original azure blue as Kurama, the Ninetales, was pulled out of him. Bansho Tenin. Demetsu was the first thing Naruto uttered after the appearance of the Rinnegan in his left eye. The force of attraction radiated from his hand was targeted at the chained nine-tailed beasts. The forces of attraction wrestled against the chakra chains binding the nine-tailed beasts, causing the nine creatures to let out a screech of pain as their bodies experienced an impromptu tug-of-war. Naruto's will eventually won out as the chains shattered whilst the nine beasts was pulled into Naruto's seal, leaving Naruto panting with the large influx of chakra. Obito! Madara shouted, realizing that Obito had used Kamui to transfer his left Rinnegan to Naruto before Zetsu had taken over his body. Insolent brat! The madman further shrieked as his required left eye and chakra source for fueling his large-scale hypnotism was taken by Naruto. In a rush of rage, he dashed at the still panting Naruto, his hands going for the kill. He smiled as he felt the stream of red liquid flowing through his hand. However, his smile quickly faded as he realized that the blood flowing through his hand did not belong to Naruto. Naruto watched wide-eyed as Madara's hand thrusted through Sasuke's chest after the black-haired boy shoved the blonde out of harm's way before Madara made contact. Sasuke. Naruto whimpered, feeling the wetness gathering in his eyes. Why? The blonde asked, seeing the deja vu reenactment of what had happened on the Wave mission when Sasuke took Haku's needles for him. Why you're my best friend. I finally realized how wrong I've been and how right you always were. Sorry for everything. The black-haired boy gasped as blood made its way out of his mouth. Get him, Naruto. Sasuke smiled as he uttered his final words before his eyes lost its light. Sasuke! Naruto shouted, as he futilely ordered his body to move towards the raven-haired boy, not noticing the shadow of Black Zetsu that appeared near him. The end seemed near as the abyssal black hand made its way closer and closer to the blonde's chest. Yet again, he was saved as a flash of pink pushed his static body out of harm's way, taking the fatal damage instead. Sakura! Naruto screamed as Black Zetsu's hand slowly drained away Sakura's life. Thank you for everything, Naruto. The pink-haired girl gave Naruto a soft smile as blood slowly seeped out her lips. Get him an El Livo on. She finished as her body became limp and was thrown away by Black Zetsu as he pulled his hand out of her chest. Sakura! Naruto howled as the knife called pain tear through his heart. Tears flowed down his bereaved face. Sadness was replaced by anger and hatred towards the man who caused the loss of his loved ones. I'll kill you! I'll kill you! The blonde screamed as his body was finally movable. Kurama! He mentally shouted as the nine-tailed fox nodded. The two coalesced the tailed beast bomb that was shot at Madara, generating earth-quaking force which smoke splurged out. Yet when the smoke cleared, Madara stood there with the Shinju, 10 tails, husk next to him, unharmed. Kill me, you say? Madara muttered. As long as I have this husk, all the chakra you used on me shall be rendered useless. You seem to think that I am out of option, but look around you. What do you see? Chakra. The largest gathering of chakra in a single place since the existence of the sage. You cannot stop me. Madara spoke as he weaved various hand seals. Black Zetsu, who stood next to Madara, suddenly slumped down. Naruto's eyes widened as he realized what Madara was thinking. He quickly spread his chakra to all the shinobis around to form a protective layer of chakra over their bodies. Your efforts are futile, the long-haired Uchiha stated blandly. It sadly seemed true, as even with the chakra of the 9 beasts, he could feel his strength being sapped away at a rapid rate. His distress was channeled through the mental link, which was felt most clearly by Tsunade. Naruto, the medic, spoke through the mental link. Jiraiya once said that the true measure of a shinobi is not how he lives, but how he dies. I've always thought that the old pervert was overtly senile and naive until I found you. I've lost much through this system, and I couldn't bear the thought of losing you. Especially knowing that I would be at fault for preventing you in defeating that Uchiha bastard. Forgive this old granny who came to view you as a son she never have, and for being unable to stand being a burden to you. Even if you can't save me, save this world, all right? She ended her speech as she sent her life energy through the link towards Naruto. Her body, without chakra, began to dissipate as ashes, floating away with the winds. Ba-chan! Naruto cried. His heart throbbed in pain as he lost another one of his precious people. Naruto-kun, I used to always cry and give up. I made many wrong turns, but you helped me find the right path. I always chased after you. I wanted to catch up to you. I wanted to walk beside you all the time. I just wanted to be with you. You changed me. Your smile is what saved me. That is why I am not afraid to die protecting you, because I love you. Naruto-kun. With that, her energy was transferred to Naruto as her body disintegrates similarly to Tsunade. Hinata. Naruto wailed as tears streamed down his eyes. I think of you as a friend. I used to think friend was just another word. Nothing more, nothing less. But when I met you, I realized what was important was the word's meaning. You were the one who taught me to deepen my bond with my people. Thanks to you, I was able to regain my true self. Naruto Uzumaki. Knowing you, you will overcome this disaster and grow even stronger from it. Gaara uttered, his body fragmented into sands that he was always associated with. Gaara. Naruto. I may not have been the best father one could have, but you surely are the most amazing son any father could want. I'm really proud of you. Live on, son. Minato ushered as the chakra from his reincarnated body was given to Naruto along with Kurama's yang chakra. Dad, this is getting troublesome with everyone speaking too much. It's quite clear that everyone here wouldn't want to become fuel for that hypnotizing jutsu. Let's get this done so I could have my sleep. Shikamaru yawned, looking lazy even at the end as his body slowly shattered. Shikamaru. Stop. Enough. Everyone stop. Naruto helplessly cried, as life force after life force came rushing into him till all that remained on the battlefield was Naruto, Madara and the body of the Shinju. His legs lost its strength as he saw the field of dust on the deserted plain. Futile. The madman muttered. They are not the only source of chakra for me. If I could not cast the world into eternal slumber, then I shall erase everything off it. He continued to weave more hand seals whilst Naruto only stared in shock as he felt the life forces of innocent creatures being drained towards by Madara. Sensei always said the forgiveness is the key to peace, but you're someone who I could never forgive. The blonde roared, though the Uchiha merely smirked. And what are you going to do about it, boy? Naruto, Kurama cried from inside the seal. Kurama. The other tailed beasts and I have finally thought of a way to defeat that wretched man. All you have to do is go into your sage-tailed beast mode and combine all our chakra with the chakra you receive before using Bansho Tenin Demetsu to pull in flask of the Shinju. Obito had already destroyed the Shinju's consciousness, so by pulling in the flash and combining it with our chakra, you'll surpass the old man or even the Shinju itself. But that would kill all of you. I can't lose anyone anymore. Naruto. We've already decided. If you really want to do something for us, then do what you've always done. Prove it to us with your actions. That's who you are. Kurama, Naruto nodded as he strengthened his resolve. A cross sign was formed on both his azure and purple irises as he once again uttered. Bansho Tenin. Demetsu. The force of attraction between both sides was felt through the land that significantly slumped as Naruto fought Madara over the control of the Shinju's husk. You cannot defeat me. I have the chakra of the world. Madara screamed as he pushed more of his power towards the Shinju, maintain it in his grasp. The chakra you have are all from the unwilling. Someone like you should just disappear. The sudden surge of power allowed Naruto to successfully pull the husk of the Shinju, which immediately merged with his body. Blinding light accumulated around Naruto's body that even the Uchiha had shut his eyes to stop the blindness. As the light died down, there floated Naruto. Yet instead of horns that grew off Obito's body, there were wings. 10 pairs of shining wings, 2 on his head, 6 on his body and a pair each on his feet. 10 shining orbs of light surrounded his back whilst a halo shone upon his head.
What are you? The lunatic man uttered, shocked by Naruto's change of appearance as well as ever-increasing power. Your death, was the answer Naruto gave before he shot a beam of light at the Uchiha, obliterating his left arm.
Just because you grew wings do not mean that I would be defeated, the madman howled as he charged straight at Naruto, forming a set of hand seals. Rinbo. Hengoku. The Uchiha shouted and could only stare in amazement as Naruto's body was unaffected, the strong amount pressure generated from the jutsu. You are unsuitable to wield the eye that could generate life, Naruto murmured as he targeted a force of attraction at Madara's eye, pulling it out of the sockets before coming into his hand.
I shall erase everything about you, Madara. He spoke as the grasped out Madara's other Rinnegan in his left eye before shattering the 2 eyeballs with his orbs of light. Instead of leaving a hollow socket, an azure orb was formed before a ripple pattern emerged over both of Naruto's azure orbs via the Shinju's power. Madara shrieked in agony seeing his livelong creation shattered but was seemingly ignored by Naruto. Light gathered in his arms as he formed a cell DNA-shaped swirling blade.
The divine blade of the Sage of 6 Paths, Nunoboku. With this blade the sage created the world, and with this very blade I shall destroy the one who seek to destroy it. The blonde shouted as the blade of light was thrown straight at Madara Uchiha, obliterating all traces of the said man from the plane of existence. A large thump resonated across the deserted plain as Naruto's body slumped down. Pools of tears dripped from his eyes as he tightly clenched his fist whilst the horrid reality slowly sunk in. The absorbed powers of all the tailed beasts greatly enhanced his empathetic senses, yet he could not feel a single tingle of life around him. The world truly seemed to be dead. Naruto sobbed exhaustively, longing for a miracle of some sort to reverse all that had happened. He wished it was a dream, but it wasn't. No miracle intervened to invert the tragedy that had happened. The cold weather was closing in on him. He felt the chills along his veins, yet he was too weak to move, too tired and too grief-stricken to care. When people are protecting something truly special to them, they truly can become as strong as they can be, was what Haku had once told him, and he had always abided by it. His life became dedicated to protecting his friends, the people who made his life worthwhile. Yet now, all of them were dead. It then occurred to him that he might as well die here.
Everyone, I'm sorry. Naruto whispered those words as he silently took out a kunai from his pocket. Caught in a grief too deep for tears, he knelt down on the icy terrain and braced the hilt of the dagger between his knees, clasping his hands with the dagger between his wrists, resting them on either side of the blade's edge.
Yet as he pulled both wrists up along the knife edge, the vision of his friends flashed before him. They were chiding and smiling at him as if they were telling him to abandon his thoughts and live on.
Live on. It was Sakura's final words for him. Could he simply throw away his life like this? The blonde thought. If he died, nothing would be left of the shinobi civilization. Even if he were alone, his life would serve as a remembrance of the shinobi civilization. He would live on, and he would live on and he would live on without regrets. The following month, Naruto journeyed all across the realm. He found the world to be much larger than he had anticipated. Along his journeys, he took the chance to learn and mastered all the shinobi arts had to offer. It may seem impossible at first glance, yet with the help of the shadow clones and his ascended Rinnegan, it became an easy task.
His journey, however, was devoid of any traces of life.
It seemed that Madara had truly drained all life on Earth.
It was impossible for him to use Geto. Rinne Tensei as the jutsu from Madara had turned everything to dust.
Naruto continued to wonder why he continued to live when every one of his precious people had now disappeared, yet images of his friends telling him to live prevented him from going through with the thought of suicide. Though truthfully speaking, he did not know if he could die anymore. He laughed whilst he thought of his suicide attempt last month. Slicing himself to death became a no method when one simply regenerate within seconds.
He sat down on the lifeless land, wondering what he should be doing. After all, he finally finished collecting the teachings of the shinobi nations.
When people get hurt, they learn to hate. When people hurt others, they become hated and racked with guilt. Even I can tell that hatred is spreading. But knowing that pain allows people to be kind. Pain allows people to grow, and how you grow is up to you. I believe that someday the day will come when people truly understand one another. If I can't find the answer to how, it will be up to you to do it. The teachings of his sensei came to his mind. Up to me, he thought.
His sensei had always been on a personal quest to find true peace. Peace where all beings understood one another. A derelict state of nothingness clearly could not be the peace Ero Sennin had wanted. Naruto thought as he gathered the light containing both yin and yang chakra onto his hand. He had thought about recreating all of his precious person, but he knew that those creations would not be what he had lost, and doing so would disregard their sacrifice to at least save the planet. Focusing his power within his hand, he spoke. Banbutsu Sozo. A blast of light erupted in front of him, and as it died down, there stood a handsome-looking man with long blonde hair and green eyes. Above his head was a halo of light, and behind him were 6 magnificent golden wings. He looked at Naruto questioningly whilst the short-haired blonde merely grinned after he finally saw another life form after a month of nothingness. From now on you shall be known as Michael. Let us ascend the skies where we may find peace in heaven.
Time is not absolute, it is relative. Albert Einstein.
Daddy, where are we going? Was the question that came from the 12-winged being known as Michael.
I have no idea, and for the last time, Michael, stop calling me Daddy. Deadpanned Naruto.
Even though Naruto had said that they were going to ascend heaven, find peace and do other stuff, he really had no idea where heaven really is. Hell, even the name Michael popped out of nowhere. But seriously, you've got to give the man a break. Anyone would have loved to play the creator once in his or her lifetime, especially when you really had just created something out of nothing.
He initially thought that if he flew up high enough in the sky, there would have been a floating mass of tangible clouds waiting for him to populate it with animals that one day might return to Earth's surface when it becomes livable. Sadly, that was not the case. In the sky there were clouds, and above those clouds were more clouds, and above that was when he realized that he really had transcended the limits of humans. This came from the fact that there was no breathable air for him to breathe after he flew over layers after layers of clouds, that there was no layer of clouds left to fly over. It was an uncomfortable feeling, to not be able to breathe yet still able to live. Flying high enough to the point he found the world to be a continuously rotating sphere gave the short-haired blonde a severe depression. There was no land above the clouds after all. That revelation simply messed up his original plan of recreating humans and other animals. Another problem was the fact that he could not create the average human either. The second time he tried creating a human, his creation once again turned out to be somewhat like him and Michael, a being with wings. Though instead of having blonde hair and gold wings, his new creation supported black hair and white wings instead.
Naruto sighed in resignation after finding all the dead ends to his plan. His depression was so severe that he did not notice a black spherical hole appearing before him until Michael and his second creation pulled him to a stop. "What the heck is that?" Naruto questioned, mostly to himself as he saw the seemingly void sphere. What he did not further expect was for a gray-eyed, black-haired girl with pointed ears supporting a black gothic Lolita dress to step out from the void and emotionlessly said,
"Are you infinite? What? Are you infinite?"
"What do you mean by infinite? Are you infinite?"
I suppose. Kurama did once say that the Shinju's power were immeasurable. Now I have that in the life forces of the strongest people of my age. The small girl nodded, seemingly satisfied by Naruto's answer before she turned towards his second creation and said,
"Samael." "Samael?" Naruto voiced. "Is he not Samael?" The little girl once again spoke.
"I don't know. He was just created. Then he shall be Samael. Can I ask why? I saw it. I see the past, present and glimpse of future for those in my race, and he will soon be a part of it."
"Oh, okay." Naruto deadpanned but mentally relented with the name Samael. He didn't have a better alternative anyway. "Who are you anyway?" The short-haired blonde finally spoke out his sentiments, which arise when the black-haired girl walked out of the void sphere. "I am Ophis. If you don't mind me asking, why aren't you not dead?" "I am infinite and I'm not from here," the girl emotionlessly replied as she pointed at the circular blob of void she came from.
"Oh, so you're not from this spherical Earth?" The Lolita-like girl shook her head at Naruto's question. The blonde's eye widened, but he continued.
"Then why are you here? You. What? I sensed a disruption in this dimension from your power. I had thought that only Great Red and I possesses this power, but apparently you do too." I suppose I got a lot stronger, but even with all this power I couldn't achieve me goal." Naruto spoke as he comically slumped. "And what might that be?" The girl cocked her head as she inquired. "Finding peace. Is this not peace? If you get rid of those two, then you will have the peace of calmness and silence." Ophis mouthed as she pointed at Michael and Samael, who quickly backed away to Naruto. "Actually, I was the only thing living here before I created those two." Ophis seemed unsurprised at the revelation as Naruto continued to speak. "Even though the state of nothingness could be described as peace for you, but it's not the same for me. Peace for me would be a time where there's harmony without conflict and violence. A time where everyone could understand one another, a world free of hate, a world where the cycle of hatred would be non-existent." The petite girl nodded but said, "We continue agreeing to disagree on the concept of peace. But if you want to repopulate Earth, can't you simply create life on Earth once more?" "I could, but somehow I couldn't create humans. Every attempt I took turned out like that," Naruto explained as he pointed towards his two creations that simply smiled apologetically.
"And what's wrong with them? Other than the fact that they have wings and light above their head, they're way stronger than the humans that once lived here." She once again pointed at Michael and Samael. "Well, that's the point. I just don't feel like I'm human anymore. In fact, I don't think I'm human anymore. Seriously, humans have to breathe and eat, yet I don't. I suppose I can if I want to, but it's not a necessity anymore." The same could be said about those two. My sensei wanted peace for humanity, and a world with only beings like me would not be a world where my sensei's dream would be realized.
"I continue to question your thoughts. Humans are such fragile and useless creatures. Those creations of yours are simply much stronger than they are, but opinions differ from one another. I shall help if you promise not to disrupt the silence in my realm." "Sure," Naruto immediately answered, grinning brightly as he finally found a way to bring back humanity. "However, the doing repopulating this world would not be me, it is someone I know. His name is Prometheus."
"Okay, and when will we see the guy?" "Soon, but as he terraforms this world, you must not be here. It's one of his requirements for creating life anyway. He's quite protective of his magical formula to form life," Ophis explained.
"Sure, but where should Michael, Samael and I go when he's doing his thing?" My dimension links 3 other plane of existence together. The one we're on and 2 other. One of that is a hollow dimension. You could stay there whilst Prometheus works.
Great. Naruto grinned. Then let us leave. The girl emotionlessly said as 4 circular magical circles appeared beneath Ophis and the 3 winged beings. In a flash of light, the 4 of them disappeared from the derelict world. Naruto felt dizzy. Body stuttered as he opened his eyes. In front of him was a large palace made out of marble. It was held by many marble columns carved in the shape of toga-wearing women, whilst its entablatures were magnificently decorated, giving the palace an immensely refined appearance. Michael and Samael quickly came to help him stand properly, though he could feel that they were experiencing the headaches themselves.
Daddy, are you alright? Michael inquired. Yep, and for the last time, Michael, stop calling me Daddy. Even Samael doesn't. Naruto moaned as he calibrated his bearings. You seem to have dimension travel sickness. You'll get used to it after a while. Ophis stated as she walked up to the palace as Naruto and his creations followed. After a few knocks from Ophis at the overtly large door, it opened to reveal a white hallway decorated in gold leaves, depicting various fights between humans and monsters. The 4 journeyed to the end of the hallway where a large door was situated. With a wave from Ophis, the door opened, revealing a tanned man, supporting a white gold toga inside. At the sight of Ophis and the power radiating from Naruto, he simply bowed. Great Ophis, what might you be here for? And who is this man? The tanned man asked. He is Naruto. Naruto ended, sending back a bow towards the cloaked man. Is that your name? Ophis asked as she sent the short-haired blonde a questioning look. It is. I was wondering when you'll ask. He sarcastically deadpanned before he turned back to the toga-cloaked man, who gave him a smile. I'm Prometheus, delighted to make your acquaintance. However, before Naruto could say anything, Ophis cut him off. Prometheus, I want you to recreate humans in the realm where this man is from. Humans like the one I've first created in this dimension? Ophis nodded as Prometheus continued. Of course, you came at a rather good time as well, I suppose. I was trying to find a reason to avoid joining the war between my uncle, Kronos, and his children. You do have to take me there though, as I simply could not locate this world alone. Ophis nodded as 5 magic circles appeared beneath the 5 of them, and with a blinding flash of light, they traveled the dimension. Magnificent was the word that Prometheus uttered the moment he arrived on the land where the former elemental nations was located. This place is the ideal place for terraforming. The Titan exclaimed excitedly. His eyes seemed to shine as he scanned the derelict land. He turned towards the 4 of them before he said, if you will excuse me. Ophis nodded to the phrase before she opened up the void sphere she initially used to travel and started walking into it. Hey, are you sure that we can go in there? Naruto spoke, voicing out both Michael and Samael's sentiments about walking into the void. Ah, I forgot. You just have to cover yourself with your power and you will be fine, she answered before she continued walking. Crazy witch. What if Naruto-sama got hurt? Samael suddenly voiced, fearing for his creator's health. Ophis seemed unaffected by Samael's outrage and simply, he'll be all right, but you two won't, she finished as she walked into the void, leaving one blanched-faced Samael who was pulled by a chuckling Naruto along with Michael into the void. So this is where you live, huh? The blue-eyed blonde asked as he entered the dimensional gap. Ophis merely nodded at his question. Within the dimensional gap seemed to be an endless void, where in every direction, there is a mix of iridescent color. Ophis, don't you feel lonely here? Naruto further asked, but Ophis did not reply and simply floated up as she signaled for them to follow. Are we there yet? Naruto asked. Yet Ophis did not reply, prompting him to continue asking till even the normally emotionless Ophis seemed to sport a ticked mark. Michael, fearing that the girl might simply abandon them, tried finding topics for Naruto to talk about, but even that did not seem to stop the, "Are we there yet?" that continued to pop up time after time. After a seemingly endless time of flying and equally endless questioning of, "Are we there yet?" Office simply stopped before she opened a void door and walked in, followed by Naruto, Michael and Samael. At first glance, the place was a field of endless whiteness, but after closer scrutiny, the whiteness were clouds, more specifically a floating mass of tangible cloud. So tangible clouds exist. Naruto spoke in awe as Office nodded before she said, I suggest you find something to do for a while here, maybe create some more of your kind? You're going to have to wait here for some time? Eh? How long is some time? Very long. I'll come to tell you when it's done. The little girl seemed to smile at Naruto's shocked face as she opened up her void door. Though before she went in, Naruto grabbed her into a fierce hug. Thank you so much, Naruto grinned, tears stinging in his eyes as he released her from the hug. Friends hugs one another, he explained. Without you I would have been so lost. You're welcome to visit anytime, alright? Office nodded as she walked into the void. He turned towards his two companions and asked, So guys, want to explore? Exploration turned out rather successful with albeit unsuccessful results. It turned out that tangible clouds were the only things that exist in this realm. Naruto gave us his attempt to further explore, but Michael and Samael had not relented. He let out an annoyed huff at the blankness of the place before he saw a circular black void appearing. Office! He shouted as he quickly ran over to the void. However, the blonde was surprised to find an older version of Office standing before him. You certainly aged fast, he joked at her appearance as she replied. I shape-shifted. What? I shape-shifted, she again said. Naruto sent a, what the hell, look at her and voiced his question once more. What are you? I'm a dragon. What? Asked Naruto, who now sent Office a, what are you even talking about look? I'm a dragon. She repeated, aren't dragons supposed to be like, I don't know, bigger? I'm a shape-shifting dragon. Okay. Whatever you say. So what are you here for? You said I could come anytime, so I came, can't I? Of course you can, you're my friend. Naruto said as he grinned at the company before he spoke out an idea that suddenly popped into his head. Do you want to play cards? Cards? She questioned. You don't know what it is, do you? It's this. Naruto spoke as he used Banbutsu Sozo to create a deck of cards. Office looked at the deck in interest as Naruto explained the rule of blackjack. Both of us will be dealt with an initial 2-card hand. We need to add together the value of their cards. Face cards, kings, queens, and jacks, are counted as 10 points. You can count an ace as 1 point or 11 points. All other cards are counted as the numeric value shown on the card. After getting the 2 cards, you can either take an additional card or keep what you have. You win by having a score of 21 or by having the highest score that is less than 21. Scoring higher than 21 means you lose. Get it? Office nodded in interest as Naruto gave her the cards. After about 20 minutes worth of game, Naruto started to feel bad. Even though Office seemed to enjoy the game, Naruto felt horrible for winning every round and opted to ask Office to play another game instead. Office nodded innocently, interested in seeing another game as Naruto used Banbutsu Sozo to create a shogi board along with its associated pieces. The end result wasn't as well as Naruto had hoped. Courtesy from the fact that Naruto had not known the rules that well either. They ended up stopping the game as their moves became more and more artistic. I wish there were more to this place than just tangible clouds, the blonde voiced. Why don't you create other beings like Michael and Samael? She curiously inquired. I was thinking about it, but I really can't think up any names. He truly answered. After all, Michael was a name that simply popped up whilst Samael was named by Office pseudo-clairvoyance. I shall help you. Wait here for a while. She spoke as she opened up her void portal again before she stepped in. Naruto waited for about 5 minutes before Office came back with a parchment in her hand. She walked up to him before she handed him the parchment. Inside was a long list of names Naruto had not seen before. Where did you get these names from? He questioned, genuinely interested. I know someone who can see small glimpse of the future. I asked for a list of name and I was given this. She answered as the blonde once again gave her a deadpan look. Okay. Well, let's see. Gabriel seems to be a nice name. Hey, Ophis, can you shapeshift until I say stop? Ophis nodded at his request and started to shapeshift. Her first form was a gigantic troll, causing Naruto to yell, "Keep it somewhat human, please." After a while of shape-shifting, Naruto decided that the best form for Gabriel was to be an extremely beautiful woman with curly blonde hair and a voluptuous figure. He focused the power to his hand as he used Banbutsu Sozo to create her. Ophis watched wide-eyed as Naruto powers began to materialize a perfect copy of her present form. When the lights died down, there were two identical women. How was it? Interesting, Ophis stated as she changed to her long black-haired child form. Oh, your name is Gabriel, okay? Naruto turned to the newly created woman with 6 pair of wings behind her. The blonde-haired woman simply nodded. At that moment Michael and Samael came, so Naruto asked them to take care of Gabriel as he walked off with Ophis. Do you always imagine something before you create them? The black-haired girl asked.
Sometimes. When I created the cards and the board games I did. Not when I created Michael and Samael though. Even if Samael seemed to share an uncanny resemblance to one of my deceased friend.
Why? Why what? Why would you let me help you create her? Friends help each other, so of course I would want you to help me create her since you're my friend. Naruto grinned as he spoke. Ophis did not reply and Naruto took it as her acceptance towards their friendship. I want to play cards again, she suddenly spoke. Sure. Don't blame me if you lose. The blonde replied with a grin, noticing a small smile adoring Ophis' face. After an hour or so of losing, Ophis abruptly said, I have to go, and started opening the void portal. As she started walking it, Naruto soft grabbed her wrist. Being alone is incredibly lonely, so you don't have to go, you know? Naruto spoke softly. Ophis merely nodded, but the void portal closed down. About 4 to 5 months had passed since Naruto started staying in the realm of tangible clouds. In the past months he created many more beings with wings that he named Uriel, Raphael, Metatron, Sandalphon, Regule, Raziel, Sariel and Remiel. After the creation of Remiel, Ophis suggested for Naruto to add some aspects of the people he knows into his creation. She told him that doing so would help him move away from the past, as he doesn't have to keep all the memories to himself. He debated about doing so for some times and finally relented. Those creations were Azazel, Shemazai, Barakiel, Armeros, Sahariel, Penamwe and Tamiel. In them were aspects he remembered about his godfather and sensei, Jiraiya, as well as many of his precious people. Finally he created Kokabiel, a creation where he added in his childish feeling of rejection so he could truly feel that he could begin anew. Everything seemed wonderful, as his pseudo-family got larger and larger. Tangible cloud realms even have more than just cloud. This came in the form of a white gigantic castle surrounded by flowery fields, courtesy of Gabriel and Ophis' idea that Naruto created via his Banbutsu Sozo. One day Ophis came up to him before she said, I think enough time has passed. What do you mean? About 4 billion years have passed in your world since Prometheus terraformed it. What? Why? Samael became linked with the depiction of a snake and to the notion of shame. If you've read this story carefully, you would have realized the winged beings created by Naruto are naked. Why aren't they clothed? You asked. Simple, Naruto did not feel that he was a fashion designer and so did not feel that he have create clothes. After all, Michael and Samael were guys, so why should he bother? Well, the problem came after he created Gabriel. It was another day in the realm of tangible clouds when Gabriel started exploring the place with Michael and Samael. Michael had taken off first, leaving Samael with Gabriel. Gabriel, being curious about things as she usually is, asked Samael. Samael, why is my chest fatter than yours? Samael, who was as innocent as newborns usually are, answered. Since Naruto-sama created you later, he might have made you stronger than Michael and I, therefore the large chest. But it doesn't feel strong at all. It's all squishy and mushy. It's also a little heavy. I suppose you have to ask Naruto-sama then, Samael concluded. The blonde woman became silent for a while before she gave Samael her next inquiry. Why do you have something hanging down there and I don't? She spoke as she pointed her finger at little Samael. Possibly the same reason. You could move faster without it, I suppose? Do you think Master Naruto have it as well? I don't know, you have to ask him. Hey, Samael. Let's go find Master. Sure, he replied as the two of them flew over to Naruto, who was playing artistic and random shogi with Office. Master Naruto, I've got something to ask you. Shoot it, Naruto spoke as he concentrated on his next random shogi move. Why are my chest larger and more jiggly than Michael and Samael? The blonde girl cheerfully asked. Naruto, shocked by the question, collapsed onto the shogi board, ending the game as Office concluded that she had won.
What? He spoke hesitantly. Why are my chest larger and more jiggly than Michael and Samael? She repeated.
Because you are a girl and those two are guys? Naruto sarcastically answered. Oh, so those two have those snake-like things down their hips because they're guys? The short-haired blonde nodded at her question as she continued. Do you have the snake-like things as well? Naruto continued to nod at her inquiry. Does that mean that Office-san does not have those snake things? Gabriel asked. Yes, no, came the voice of both Naruto and Office in that order. So Office-san does have those snake-like things? Office nodded as Naruto deadpanned. Could you please show it to me? Gabriel asked. The petite black-haired girl nodded as she formed a black snake in her hand. The reptile moved towards Samael before it slithered up his leg, moved to his torso and coiled over his manhood, causing a groan of pleasure to erupt from Samael's lips. Ooh! It's the same size, cried Gabriel. I'm feeling all hot and bothered, what should I do? I could let it slither in you, pointed out Office emotionlessly as she uncoiled the snake from Samael Jr. and let it slither towards Gabriel, who stared at it in excitement. However, before it reached Gabriel, a black orb, courtesy of Naruto, destroyed the snake as he shouted aloud, "Stop!" His face blushed crimson. Everything went still as Naruto quickly used Banbutsu Sozo to create clothes for Gabriel and Samael before he threw it at them. Wear this, he shouted. But Master Naruto, I want to know what happens when the snake slithers into me. Gabriel pouted as she reasoned. Why, you can only do that when there's two of you in a room. Not in public, and from now on wear those clothes. What's happening? Are you all right, Naruto-sama? Your face is really red, came the voice of Michael, who suddenly flew down. Fabrics of clothes was threw at his face as Naruto shouted. Wear them. P.S. This story will play quite a major part in future chapters. Why the two dragons fight? Office, are you really a dragon? It was about 3 months after Naruto came to the realm of tangible clouds when he questioned this to Office. The black-haired woman merely nodded at his inquiry as the blonde continued his questioning. Are there other dragons around? Office merely nodded as Naruto continued. Could you take me to see them? Again she nodded before she stood up and opened a void portal and signaled for the blonde to follow her. After stepping in the portal, the first thing he saw was a large congregation of greeneries. Damn, you've got to teach me how to make travel like that, Naruto muttered whilst Office nodded to his request. She continued walking further as Naruto silently followed her until they finally reached a large clearing in the forest. We wait. Office spoke as she sat down in the clearing, gesturing for Naruto to do the same. The word, shogi, came out from Office's lips whilst Naruto simply sighed and made a shogi board. After about 2 hours of playing random shogi, a sudden sound of cracking made way to Naruto's ear. The sky seemed to crack like shards of mirrors before 2 large western dragons made their way out of it. To Naruto's left was a large red dragon with green eyes, and to his right was a large white dragon with blue eyes. They both flew down to the large clearing as Naruto watched them in awe as he finally got to see a real dragon. "Hey, Ophis!" cried the red one. The black-haired woman did not seem to take notice of the greeting as she pointed towards the red dragon before she said, "He, Diedrich." She then moved her finger towards the white dragon and spoke, "He, Albion." "Emotionless as ever, aren't you, Ophis? Diedrich and I just went to the land of the bats for our hunting. You should join us and see how I beat Diedrich to his target," voiced the white dragon, Albion. "HMMP, you can only beat me in your dreams," retorted the Diedrich, but he seemed to be ignored by Albion. "Bats?" questioned Naruto. So you might have not seen them. They're like you, but instead of those shining wings, they have black ones instead," explained the red reptile. "Okay, bat wings, weird huh?" the blonde stated as he looked at Ophis, who was pointing her fingers at his wings. "Point," said Naruto as he accepted his equally strange weirdness. "Anyway, Ophis, why are you here?" asked the white one. The one in question merely looked at Naruto and spoke. "He wanted to see dragons. Are you not a dragon as well?" "He did not believe that I am a dragon," retorted Ophis, as Naruto chuckled at her annoyed yet restrained face. "And who might this guy be?" questioned the red one. "He is Naruto," answered the infinite dragon. "Oh ho, you are incredibly powerful. I am Diedrich, the third strongest dragon after the Apocalypse Dragon, Great Red and the Infinite Ouroboros, Ophis. And I am Albion, the third strongest dragon after Great Red, the Apocalypse Dragon, Ophis the Infinite Ouroboros." "Is this where you got your infinite speech from?" asked Naruto to the woman next to him, who merely nodded. "And wait a minute, how can there be two third strongest dragon? Which one of you is stronger?" continued Naruto, and he thought about their similar introduction. "It is easily I," exclaimed the two dragons in synchronicity. "No, it is I," they once again shouted in synchronicity. "I shall burn you to crisp," screeched Diedrich. "I shall divide you to nothingness," countered Albion. The two dragons flew up into the sky as they started fighting viciously with one another. Naruto simply sent Ophis a "Are you serious?" look as she opened her void portal and pulled him in. "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy." Hamlet, 4 billion years. Repeated a shocked Naruto at Ophis' statement. The black-haired girl merely nodded as she explained. "To create humans and other animals it requires time. Prometheus merely set off the process as we wait. Time flows differently in different dimensions. It flows faster in your original one than in this one. Does that mean that I could not return to this place anymore after going back?" the blonde questioned. Ophis shook her head as she explained. "You have enough power to force the time of this dimension to move in accordance to the time of your original dimension." Her answer greatly relieved Naruto, as he believed that humans might not take well to beings with wings, and this place could always be a haven for them if they were to be rejected. "So how do I do that?" "As we travel through my home, you shall keep track of your magical essence in this dimension. When we arrive on your original realm, simply strengthen the track. By adding enough power to the track, you shall be able to link the time between the two dimensions as well as travel between them with ease. But won't that disturb your home?" "I did promise not to disturb your dimensional gap," Naruto questioned as Ophis turned away whilst she spoke. "If it's for you, I shall tolerate. Thanks," Naruto said, sending her his trademark grin. The blonde then telepathically called for his winged creations to group up. He told them about finally going back to his original realm, causing many to be filled with excitement. Michael and Samael stood by his side as he told Ophis that they were ready. The black-haired girl nodded as she opened a larger than normal portal which she and Naruto stepped it. They were soon followed by Naruto's winged creations. Blinding light flashed Naruto's eyes as he stepped out from the portal that emerged in his original realm. He followed Ophis' instruction and linked the time tracks between the two worlds, stabilizing the two dimensions with one another. The azure-eyed blonde spread his sensory and felt millions of life inhabiting the planet. He smiled, realizing that humanity had been recreated even though they did not have the ability to use chakra or magic as Ophis called it anymore. What he did not expect was for him to sense many large readings of energies elsewhere. In fact, one was heading towards him. There, standing in front of him, was a black-haired young man clad in a set of knee-long white toga. He sported a winged flat hat and a winged pair of sandals. His hand held a winged staff with snakes wrapped around it. "I am Hermes, messenger of Olympus. Lord Zeus demands to know if you were the one who commissioned the construction of this world. His lordship demands your presence immediately," spoke the newly arrived messenger, who seemed to ignore the presence of Naruto's winged parade behind him. "Well, this is getting weird," Naruto thought as he looked at Ophis, who seemed unconcerned as ever. Yet Naruto had learnt to understand her expression better, and her present expression told him that she was as confused as he was. Who is this Lord Zeus, and how did he know of me?" "Lord Zeus is the overlord of this dominion, through the Titan Pro." The messenger stopped before I once more spoke. "You shall come with me to Lord Zeus." This is going from strange to horribly strange. He seemed to be saying something about Prometheus. Guess I'll have to use that to understand the situation better, Naruto thought as he lifted his hand towards the messenger's head before grabbing it. His action earned a cry of outrage from the black-haired young man, but those cries stopped as Naruto's azure eyes gained a ripple-like patterns as he uttered, "Ninjendo." Enormous amount of knowledge flooded into Naruto's head as he saw images of Prometheus being chained by the one called Zeus for giving humanity in his dimension the knowledge of fire. Initially unwilling to reveal his love for humanity, he was then forced to drink the water from the fountain of truth, the action that caused him to reveal the existence of this world. Zeus and the other gods of Olympus saw Prometheus' unwillingness to share the existence of the new realm to them as an act of treason. They traveled to this world with Prometheus before they chained him to a mountain where an eagle ate his liver at a daily rate as it continues to regrow before they started calling themselves gods and spread their faith for humanity. The coming of the Olympic pantheon generated a burst of energy within the galaxy. This alerted other pantheons of life within the dimension, and soon they also came. Along with the Olympic pantheon led by Zeus, Poseidon and Hades was the Shrauda or Hindu pantheon led by Indra and Shiva, whilst Odin led the Nordic pantheon. These powerful beings started calling themselves God, an act that simply left a bad impression on Naruto. It eerily reminded him of Nagato, who initially believed that peace could be achieved through brute force. Along with these gods also came the devils, beings with bat wings who tempted humans to explain their desires. The devils granted them before eating up the human souls for them to gain a short burst of power. Another act that left a foul taste in Naruto's mouth. What worried the blonde more was the fact that none of the gods seemed to be taking any actions in dealing with the devils. Releasing his hand from the messenger's head, he turned his eyes back to normal as he accustomed himself to this new knowledge. The action, however, caused the messenger to continue speaking. "What did you do to me? You can explain that in your audience with Lord Zeus." Hermes nodded to himself as Naruto looked at him with indifference. The messenger did not expect Naruto's fist to suddenly crash towards him, knocking him out after hearing Naruto's last word, declaring, "You can tell you Lord Zeus to fuck off, Naruto-sama. Could you tell us what had just happened?" came the resolute voice of Samael. The short-haired blonde released a loud sigh as he explained the situations to his creations. Basically, Prometheus got interrogated. Other powerful beings knew the existence of this world. They came to this world before us and started calling themselves God. And there's things with bat wings called devils which eat human soul. Naruto summarized as his creations led on various degrees of gasp. "And what will you do, Daddy?" asked an intrigued Michael. "Well, for starters, we're going free Prometheus from these bastards, then we'll do something about those devils. Can't have them eating all the human soul after all my efforts to create humans, could we? And for the last time, Michael, stop calling me Daddy." Naruto huffed out his reply. His horde of winged beings nodded at his plan and Naruto dashed off into the horizon followed by Office and his parade. On top of the snowy mountains, Naruto only saw the shadow of the man he once knew. On the highest peak of the mountain laid Prometheus' chained body, all battered and bloodied. Michael and the other angels gasped as they saw an eagle pecking out the liver of the Titan's worn-out body, further bleeding out the injured Titan. Naruto had enough of the violence. He generated the energy to his hand then blasted the eagle to smithereens in a flash of light. Flying up to Prometheus' body, the blonde started examining the chains. Sorry. The Titan gasped as he saw the 20-winged blonde man. It's all right, these chains sure are thick. Naruto muttered before he used Banbutsu Sozo to generate the divine blade, Nunoboku, and proceeded to slice the chains as if they were Swiss cheese. Freed from restraints, the Titan's bruised body weakly tumbled down before he was caught by Michael and Samael on his two sides. He needs rest, Naruto spoke before the group descended on the warmer ground below. Sorry, Prometheus once again gasped out after an hour rest. It's really all right. I read the mind of Hermes. There was really nothing you could do. It's not your fault, Dadbeo. You do not understand. This is something that Hermes does not know. The Titan croaked out. What do you mean? Stealing fire for the humans in my dimension made Zeus angry. Before he captured and chained me, he gave a woman named Pandora a box filled with dark curses. She, out of curiosity, opened it. Within the box was the curse of disease, which affected all the humankind in my world. When Zeus opened a portal to this realm, it seemed as if this disease came with it. Prometheus explained. But humans always have disease, it comes with age and everything, Naruto reasoned. Yes, but this is an epidemic created by Hephaestus. It was Zeus' act to prevent disloyalty. That bastard. Now we have one more problem other than the devils to deal with, the blonde mumbled. Devils? Yeah, beings with wings that eat human souls? Oh, those. I take it that you simply read Hermes' memory. Naruto nodded at the Titan's inquiry as Prometheus continued. Those grandchildren of mine ignored most of their existence and see them as being who eats the soul of human. The truth is not that simple. Before I was chained, I had a chance to get acquainted with the devils. You will find that within the society of the devils, living in the realm of the underworld, there are two factions. One faction believes in the taking of human soul for a short period power boost, whilst the other faction does not believe so and continues to protest against this act. Unfortunately, the side supporting the taking of human soul is currently the ruler. It is sad that the four great devil houses of Lucifer, Beelzebub, Asmodeus and Leviathan all support the taking of human souls. But Naruto, you should always remember that not all devils are bad. The Uzumaki nodded at Prometheus' words, pondering whether his creation could one day turn antagonistic. He hoped that his creation of Kokabeel would not be a mistake. He let go of the depressing thoughts as he once more said. Yeah, we'll deal with the good devils later, but before that we have to deal with the disease from Pandora's box and the bad devils. Staying with the Ouroboros, Office for more than 5 months had its own benefits. In the time when they were not playing cards or random and artistic shogi, Office taught Naruto's the magic that she had learnt from the various worlds she had traveled to. Naruto found that magic was much like chakra, and with his Rinnegan eyes, Naruto quickly mastered the magic of the different dimensions. This mastery came to use as Naruto finally found a way to help humans. Linking the genetic code of humans to the spell, the blonde made it possible for one with good intentions to have their wish granted. For further protection against the devils, Naruto allowed the magic to generate and materialize a pure-hearted desire into weapons, which later became known as sacred gears. Wanting his creations to act as sentinels of the system, he added into the spell a function for them to draw on the light energy he placed inside the system, in the case where they might be attacked by the devils. Foreseeing the growth of humanity, he created a mean to mass-produce more winged beings in case of war with the devils. The end result came in the form of a 12-pointed star inside 3 layers of runes inscribed circles. In the center lies the 12-pointed star, and within it is an image of the sun, and inside the sun is an eye. Surrounding it are the phases of the moon. The eye is interconnected to the 4 cardinal points: the north, the east, the south and the west. Above the sun lies another magic circle in the form of the moon, the place where Naruto was to generate in his energy to start and fuel the magic. Since the system was going to drain him for a while, he left its maintenance to his 4 most powerful followers, the first 4 angels he created. Michael stood on the symbol of the east. Samael stood on the symbol of the west. Gabriel stood on the symbol of the north, and Uriel stood on the symbol of the south. As Naruto walked towards the center, Ophis voiced out her sentiments. Naruto, are you sure that you want to do this? Attaching yourself to all your creations as well as humans will drain more than half of your powers. It could prove dangerous if any of the Pantheon were to attack. Daddy, Naruto-sama, Master Naruto, my lord, is it true? Reverberated the voices of his 4 12-winged creations. Ophis, you really shouldn't have said that, and seriously enough with the honorifics. Naruto complained before he continued. I really couldn't use all this power myself anyway. I'd rather use it to protect humanity so that one day they might realize my sensei's dream. And it really shouldn't be a problem. Most of the power levels I sensed wouldn't be a threat even with less than half of my original power. And if they really was a threat, you're going to help me, aren't you, Ophis? The blonde questioned his long-haired companion. She did not reply, but after a few seconds, she slowly nodded. Naruto, happy with her answer, sent her his trademark grin as he flew up to the magic plane hosting the symbol of the moon. Well, let's get started. He spoke before he channeled into the magic circle his massive energy reserve. The moon plane was soon called the Throne of Heaven, whilst the overall magic circle became known as the Heavens System. I used to be Snow White, but I drifted, May West. After the creation of the heavenly system, humans of Earth regained back much of their hopes. The epidemic that came with the coming of the Olympic Pantheon started decreasing at a rapid rate. The spell circle did its jobs. With each passing days, more and more angels were created to carry the purpose of protecting humanity. Humans' contact with devils lessened as the pure-willed humans were helped by the winged beings. These beings were soon labeled as angels, after the term angelus, or messengers, which flew down from the sky. Above the cloud where a ray of shining light continuously illuminated, courtesy of the magic circle, was soon labeled heaven. The heavenly system worked as expected and life was getting better for humans of Earth. Prometheus had left Naruto and journeyed back to his own dimension in order to solve the epidemic plaguing it, as the magic circle did not incorporate his dimension within it. Time continued to flow after the creation of the Heavens System. The initial gigantic power drain in starting and fueling the system left Naruto in a coma-like state where he slept during and after the drain whilst occasionally waking up. The running of the system was regulated by his first 4 creations as expected. In one of his wake after a long slumber, Azazel visited him. Azazel has always wondered about the system's manifestation of sacred gears. He had once asked his creator, Naruto, in order to achieve some understanding of it, but Naruto's reply was that he himself didn't fully understood the process as well. Naruto explained that the spell he used gave protection through the sacred gear, though he had no idea how it truly worked. The black and blonde hair angel requested Naruto's permission in exploring them, a request that his creator granted if subjects were not harmed in the process. Studying sacred gears was rather an easy process. He simply had to fly down from the skies and visit one of the earthly inhabitants. Inhabitants that simply squeal in delight when they saw their heavenly messengers. He and his followers then simply put those crazy fans to sleep before they started analyzing the sacred gears, which earthlings contain. After finishing their research, he allowed them to wake before he bid farewell. Complication arose when followers of both sexes pleaded to go with him so that they could engage in sexual acts with the dashing messenger of heaven. Azazel, being Azazel, obliged to the demands of the busty and beautiful women whilst he sent the other, especially men, to sleep, as he did not indulge in such sexual acts like Uriel and Metatron, who he often saw snuggling. Placing a warming spell on his group, his busty and beautiful women, he instructed his subordinates to fly them up towards the tangible clouds before they shared delicious orgies, obviously with magical contraception placed on themselves. Months after months passed as Azazel and his subordinates vehemently continued their sacred and sexual gears research before Azazel finally created the first draft of his report on his hard work. It was for an artificial sacred gear called the Blazer Shining Aura Darkness Blade, a weapon to combat devils if they were to suddenly become hostile. However, it was clearly unfinished. Devising a method to fuse light with darkness seemed to be an impossible. Sighing in defeat, he decided he should ask Naruto for help when his creator woke up. Leaving the written draft on his desk, he walked into the bedroom of his complex where the willing girls are staying. "Ah, it's Azazel-sama, everyone," squealed one of the women in the complex. All eyes were on him as the 10 females stampeded at him before they made a soaring jump at his body. Within seconds, all traces of clothing were off his body. "Well, ladies, no need to hurry. You don't want to indulge yourselves on this hard floor, do you?" The angel spoke as he felt the sucking of his fingers. Using his magic, he levitated the 10 girls as he walked up to his large bed. He lied down on his bed and spoke. "Well, girls, what are you waiting for?" With that, the angel released his levitation spell. The 10 girls squealed in synchronicity as they jumped onto bed with him, delighting him in ecstasy as they slowly sucked his lips, his manly parts, his fingers, his toes, his nipples, his everything. However, his ecstasy came to an abrupt end as the door creaked open, revealing a smiling Michael, with the draft in his hand. The first angel made a shocked face as he saw Azazel's compromising position. "Ah, I should have knocked," the long-haired blonde exclaimed as he put his free hand to his lips to emphasize his shock. "Why, you should have." Deadpanned Azazel. The 10 ladies, however, seemed to ignore the appearance of Michael and continued to suck his privates and other parts. What do you want?" uttered the semi-blonde, using all of his efforts to utter those words. "I just came to day high. But then I saw this. It's amazing." Azazel, waving the draft of the artificial sacred gear around, the first angel continued. "With this, we have nothing to fear from those devils. Oh, and didn't Daddy says that the things you're doing should only be done in a room with 2 people? Well, never mind. I'll see you later." Michael finished as he left Azazel's sight. It's not done," shouted a dumbstruck Azazel. He tried to stand up but found it impossible. Every little touches and ministration done to him by the 10 ladies made his body shudder. He succumbed to the inability as the orgy continued, hoping the Michael would not do anything drastic. Horrible would be an understatement to what Azazel was experiencing. Hundreds of the angels in heaven, as the earthling dubs, seemed to be sending him skeptical looks. The reason for those looks? Michael, the archangel, being as energetic as he was, decided to publish Azazel's drafted report on his artificial sacred gear. The result was horrifying. Immediately after the magical publication of his draft, Kokabeel, who seemed to have an undying hatred for devils, decided to create the Blazer Shining Aura Darkness Blade, and use them on the devil that he saw on Earth. The Blazer Shining Aura Darkness Blade turned out to be a flop as Azazel's expected, immediately shattering after Kokabeel's input of his light magic. To make matters worse, the devil was a strong one and literally thrashed the 10-winged angel. Kokabeel, however, narrowly escaped death, flew back to heaven and started telling everyone how Azazel's project was simply a curtain to him to engage in sexual acts, a statement which was not entirely true, but it wasn't one that he could completely reject either. After all, he did enjoy his time with his horde of busty and beautiful women. What Azazel found hard to believe was that all of the commotion had occurred whilst he was engaging in his luscious orgies. Angels surely are efficient in what they do, he supposed. He did felt shamed. He was a researcher by heart, and to see his research disgraced was humiliation in its highest form. Who was he blaming? Michael, obviously. If the energetic twit didn't suddenly popped in to say, "Hi," he would have truly completed the artificial gear that would be fully appreciated by the denizens of heaven. While he knew that Michael did it with good intentions, He was Angel Man, in rage, and he needed something to blame. It did not help that Gabriel had now learned about his orgy sessions, which produced orgasmic results. She now took it as a mission to stop his orgies, claiming that Naruto had told her that sexual things should be done between two people, not between groups of people. He had learned about the story from Michael, and he simply looked at Gabriel with a deadpanned expression as she gave the talk. Worst thing was that Naruto could not fix her misunderstanding. After all, he was still in deep sleep. Gabriel was not a happy angel after she learned of Azazel's unruly sexual acts. She remembered clearly the scene where Master Naruto had told her off for asking him whether it would be okay for the snakes to slither into her. Why, you can only do that when there's two of you in a room. Not in public, was what Master Naruto clearly stated. Well, public clearly meant somewhere where there are more than two people, and Azazel being in a room filled with so many people was clearly public. He was going against what Naruto had said. Deciding that it was her duty to curb Azazel's naughty tendencies, she proceeded walking towards the great magical circle. On the plane where the grand magic circle was placed, Gabriel saw Master Naruto asleep on the moon plane as power was continuously sapped out of him. After Naruto started the draining, Ophis left, claiming she would be back once he truly awakens. She wished that the draining process would be over soon so that she could ask him what action should be taken. Alas, it was not to be, and it was up to her to deal with Azazel. Moving into her circle labeled North, she felt herself being one with the great power of Naruto. The magic was highly complex and operated without the help of Michael, Samael and Uriel with extremely difficult. She considered asking them for help, but she feared their refusal and decided to proceed on alone. After continuous adjustment of her power, she finally found herself in tune with the great magic. Even so, she could not fully control the spell and could only place the command of punishment with more than two, impure, and debauchery. Before she finished, she also tied punishment with betrayal. Ending the flow of her power towards the grand magic, she sighed in relief, happy that she had completed her personal mission. Tired from the excessive usage of magic, she fell asleep, not hearing the loud "ah" that resonated heaven. Azazel was pissed to say the least. He and his followers had been shamed by their research. Stumping off into the horizon, he supposed a party for the shamed ones would be suitable for such occasion. Calling on his followers, helpers, friends, Barakiel and Shemazai, he instructed them to tell all their researchers to bring up all the willing women so that they could celebrate in being the shamed ones of heaven. Shemazai looked at him with a blank expression, as if telling him to stop acting like a child. Azazel cared not, and Shemazai finally relented. The celebration was held in Azazel's mansion that night. The ratio between earthlings and angels were about 10-1, pleasing Azazel. Earthling food was magically conjured as the celebration continued in vigor. It wasn't long after the start of the celebration that many earthlings and angels found themselves in compromising positions. 22 women surrounded Azazel. 10 were sucking and licking the fingers in his hand, the other 10 were doing the same thing to his feet. One was giving his manhood much ministration as the other thoroughly explored the cavern in his mouth with her tongue as he did the same to her. Around him were similar sights. Numerous men surrounded Penumway. 2 were fondling her breasts, 1 was exploring her lips, and another was doing the same to the vagina as 4 others sucked on her hands. Azazel chuckled at the fun that his team of researchers were experiencing. He didn't expect the skies to suddenly darken and rain down bolts of lightning towards him and his followers. "Ah!" was the sound he heard when he regained consciousness. It was when he realized that they were falling down from the tangible clouds, literally. They were literally falling down butt naked. The next thing he realized was that their formerly white wings were now in different shades of black, his being jet black. It was when he heard a "oops," it went in. From one of followers did he realize that the earthlings were not affected by the bolts and now they were having sex whilst falling off the sky butt naked. Using a spell to slow down the fall, Azazel supposed he could use the opportunity to research some flying sex. Naruto's eyes finally opened from his deep slumber. The last of the power drain was finally over, thank goodness. He could finally move around. He did not expect to be faced with a shamed-faced Gabriel who looked as if she was about to cry. Sensing the problem, Naruto asked. Hey now, there's no need to cry, just tell me what's happening. I tweaked the system a little and Azazel and his team fell out of the sea clouds. Their wings became black and they couldn't stand on it anymore, she confessed tear-faced. Her confession was faced awkward silence before Naruto asked a confused, what? We keep moving forward, opening new doors, and doing new things, because we're curious and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. Walt Disney Naruto's journey to the ground of Earth was interesting to say the least after his incredibly long sleep. The warm sun revealed the overabundance of the green and lush trees. He could see and smell the scent of various vibrant wild flowers surrounding him as he landed on the ground and vanished his wings. He wished that he could enjoy the sceneries more, albeit that was not the case. To say that he was shocked by what Gabriel had done would be an understatement. Naruto remembered his mouth opening and closing continuously after he heard the news as if he was some kind of distorted goldfish. Was he angry with her? No, not really. After all, the falling of Azazel and his friends were caused by the complexities of the magic circle rather than Gabriel's intent. All she did was add in another set of commands and let the magic took its own cause. And to be honest, her sentiments were created by his shock when Ophis offered to slither her snake into Gabriel's hidden cavern. Though what she did caused his current problem. Naruto sighed loudly as he walked towards the constructions inhabited by the angels who fell. At the sight of him, all the black-winged beings went on their knees, adding to his view that the only thing that had changed about them was their wings and their loss of the halo. Hey, sorry for what had happened, but can one of you take me to Azazel? The blonde creator mouthed as one of the fallen respectfully nodded and signaled for him to follow. The blonde was led to a beautiful ivory pavilion, which he suspected Azazel to have created using his magic. Outside he could hear the sound of laughter drifting from the architecture. Inside was what he suspected. Azazel and Shemazai were engaged in a joyful conversation, sipping alcoholic beverages as they were massaged by a group of women. They bowed in their seats to show their respects as Naruto walked towards them, smiling awkwardly. Sorry about what happened, guys. Azazel waved him off as if it did really mattered. You shouldn't be. Uriel came down to find us before you woke and explained the situation to us. I suppose it's not Gabriel's fault either, she just misinterpreted your meaning of nakedness. Though I should thank her for letting me know the literal meaning of love in the air. And let me tell you that it was awesome. Azazel laughed whilst Naruto blushed crimson, mumbling how his creation could be so perverted. I could turn your wings white and get you guys back to heaven, as they're now calling it, if you want. Naruto offered as he continued. Though you can't have your orgies anymore unless you want to have more of your flying sex. The black blonde-haired fallen angel made a thoughtful look as he summarized the situation. So you're saying that you could take us all back to heaven, but you can't completely remove the command that Gabriel put into the circle? Naruto went silent before he replied. Well, I could, but that would mean absorbing all the magic to create the circle back into myself and redo the whole process again. Azazel looked thoughtful for a while. The room was covered in awkward silence before the fallen angel sent Naruto a wide smile. Thanks for the offer, Naruto, but we're really fine here. I prefer to have you awake, and I can't imagine what life would be without these beautiful girls and their amazing skills. Beside, black is the new white. Well, it was to be expected, but at least I tried. Naruto chuckled at Azazel's answer. It was to be expected, really. After all, someone created from Naruto's memory of Jiraiya couldn't last a lifetime without orgies. You can take anyone who wanted to return back, though. Azazel offered and Naruto nodded in acceptance. I was surprised to see Kokebiel fall, though. He didn't struck me as someone who was interested in sexual affairs, Naruto stated. Azazel merely laughed his questioning of and replied. Everyone has an interest in sexual affairs. I'm sure that you still have some libido even if you don't really show it. I didn't see Kokabeel at the party before we fell, but I suppose he might literally be in the bush somewhere then. The blonde creator snorted at Azazel's overtly simple explanation. He really can't imagine Kokabeel immersed in sexual act, but if Azazel think that he could, he wouldn't argue. He was immensely grateful for Azazel's laid-back and understanding attitude. If the whole system were to be remade, it would rob the humans of their newfound divine protection, and it would take longer to the system to once again be put in place. Letting out a sigh of relief, he stood up and mentally messaged the populace of the Fallens about their situation. "Thank you for understanding. I guess I'll see you soon," Naruto said as he sent a wave towards Azazel and Shemazai and proceeded to exit the pavilion. As expected, of the hundreds who fell, only 3 stood before him. Unexpectedly, Kokabeel wasn't one of the 3. He thought that Kokabeel would prefer to be back in heaven, but he was apparently wrong. However, he did deadpan at the perverseness of the fallen angels who were happy with their current situation, but who was he to judge? He was their creator after all. Naruto covered the 3 fallen angels with magic circles before he released his spell. Light exploded from the bodies of the 3 fallen, momentarily blinding everyone who were watching the process. As the light died down, the 3 fallen angels retained their white wings and halos. The blonde smiled at his success whilst the other fallen angels stared at him in awe. The light show seemed to have caught the interest of Azazel and Shemazai as the 2 walked out of the pavilion to view the commotion. Turning his sight towards Azazel, he threw a crystal shard at the fallen angel. "I nearly forgot to give you this. It's a way to contact me if there's any problem. All you have to do is add in your magic to the crystal." Azazel nodded gratefully for his creator's care as Naruto opened his wings and signaled for the 3 new angels to follow him. "Well, I'll see all of you again soon." He repeated his earlier phrase before the 4 angelic beings flew out of the fallen's sight. As Naruto approached the outer rim of the invisible magic shell, which protected heaven, he saw a visitor. He was a middle-aged man with gelled hair, which is a mixture of red and blue. Looking closely, the man has heterochromia, making his left eye blue while his right was red. What surprised Naruto most was that he had the black wings associated with what humans called devils. As the devil sensed Naruto approached, he turned towards the angelic being and smiled, an act that truly caught Naruto off guard. Even though Prometheus had told him not to judge the whole species of devils as evil incarnates, it was difficult to follow through, seeing that they continuously tried to thwart his efforts in making human lives better. The 3 angels following him were on guard as the devil moved closer towards the group and stopped in front of Naruto. "Oh, you must be the new god that I am hearing about," the devil stated as he analyzed Naruto. "God?" asked a surprised Naruto. "Oh, yes, God. That's what the humans on Earth are continuously talking about. I mean, when you create a system that grant miracles whilst you see illuminating lights from the sky, not to mention those winged beings that seem to be helping them. It's hard not to call the figurehead of the whole project God. Not that I'm complaining about what you do. I personally think that it's marvelous, though those 4 mouths seem to thoroughly disagree." God was the first thought that came to Naruto's mind. He never wanted to be called God. It reminded him too much of Nagato. All he wanted was to help the humans, to help them find true peace so that his sensei's dream could be achieved. You seem to not like that implications of the word God. It's a good thing, though, if I do say so myself. I mean, it would be a banner of hope for the humans." Naruto raised his eyebrows at the devil's speech, again surprised at that implication that this devil seemed to care about humans. "And who might you be?" the blonde questioned. "Oh, forgive my rudeness. I was simply surprised to see you. I would have thought this god would look older. Forgive my rudeness. I am Mephistopheles, a devil, as you would have already noticed. Great to make your acquaintance." The devil smiled once more and offered Naruto his hand. The blonde creator warily eyed the offered appendage but finally decided to shake it. Upon contact, the Mephisto suddenly looked pained as he suddenly pulled his hand away. "Ouch. Please control your light powers. I am vulnerable to those powers, especially when it is as condensed as yours." "Sorry, the blonde said as he rubbed the back of his head. Reducing the power of his light elements, he continued. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Mind telling me why you're here? Naruto wearily inquired once more. Oh, I was simply surprised about the magic system which you developed. It's a masterpiece. Another thing that I'm also curious about is your attachment to the human race. I mean, other godly factions play some role in their lives, but they don't truly believe in helping them. Mephisto answered. I got the spell from Ophis. I kind of just supplied the energy for it. The workings of the systems are too hard for me to truly understand them either. And for my attachment to humans, well, I was the one who asked Prometheus to create them here, so I kind of feel that it's my responsibility, you know. And I want them to all live a happy and peaceful life, so of course I'll help them. Though I'm very curious about you. I thought devils make unfair contacts with humans, taking their souls for granting their wish or something. Mephisto's face revealed an element of surprise. How could he not? It was new information for him. After all, only the Greek faction knew the fact that Naruto commissioned this world. Not only this, the blonde seemed to have a friendly relationship with the Infinite One. Knowing this, his interest in the blonde simply skyrocketed. You are sorely mistaken. Some of us believe in the making of those unfair contracts. Well, I suppose it's the majority of us, seeing that the four Maos believe so. I personally don't. True, the taking of souls does increase our powers, but it's only for a little while. I personally am curious about the human race as a whole and would not want to hurt them in any way. Mephisto's speech put him up a notch in Naruto's books. But his speech still wasn't really telling Naruto why he was here. And you're only here because of your interest in the heaven system and your interest in our kind? No, I'm here to have a little talk with you. I talk of magic, I suppose. A magic which can be given to humans. Well, that was something of interest to Naruto. Turning to his three followers, he told them to go back as he deal with Mephisto. They complained but reluctantly followed his orders. I suppose we'll have to find somewhere else to talk, seeing that you can't pass the magic shield. Do you have anywhere we could go? The blonde asked. Oh, certainly. My place in Lucifod will do fine. Please bear with my teleportation spell for a few seconds. Mephistopheles raised his hand to form a large black magic circle, which engulfed the two of them before a sudden flash of darkness signaled their disappearance. We are now in Lucifod, the capital of the devils. Though I suggest you dissolve your wings and control your powers before you walk outside. Naruto moved to the window and gazed around in interest. It seemed that the devils also have a city similar to humans. Is this world also connected to Earth by the dimensional gap? The blonde inquired. It is. And when you told me to control my powers, you only meant my light powers, right? Is that not your only power? Nope. Answered Naruto as he stopped radiating the element of light and released fire, earth, wind, water, and even darkness. Light's just the easiest to control for me nowadays, so it use it most often. Explained Naruto, and the devil's eyes widened in awe. Interesting. Very interesting. If you were to only release only the other five, no one would recognize you to be an angelic being. Spoke Mephisto. Though it is not why we're here. Please, have a seat. Continued the devil as he gestured for Naruto to sit on a large comfortable seat, something that Naruto instantly did. Mephisto followed and proceeded to speak. What I want to do is give humans the ability to use magic. You see, we all use different magic. I use the devil magic created by the devils, whilst you use a different set of magic circles to create your own magic. The Nordic and Hindu faction also use a different set of magic circle. From my research, I found that humans could use magic as well. And so I wish to give them the magic of all the factions. You're my first target, as I believe you would sympathize with me most towards this cause. Naruto nodded and Mephisto explained further. I'm sure the leaders of my world won't be happy, but I don't really care about them. I kind of hate them anyway. That created a small chuckle from Naruto, but the devil continued. I think we could travel around the planet and give humans the knowledge of magic. If we're lucky, the other factions might join us on our noble cause. So what do you think? I think it's brilliant, Datbeo. Consider it a deal. Naruto closed his mouth as his verbal tic emerged. He truly can't be blamed for his excitement. After all, other than his creations and Ophis, the other being he met, namely Hermes, was such an asshole. So to meet someone like Mephisto was incredibly interesting. Shall we shake on it then? Mephisto offered. Naruto nodded as he grabbed Mephisto's hand. This time, Mephisto did not pull back. Mephisto, mind if I go sightsee a little? Naruto asked. No, not at all. I suppose after exploring the town I'll be leaving. So here. The blonde threw a crystal shard towards Mephisto, who smoothly caught it. It's a way to get in touch with me. I also marked it with seals so that I could teleport to where it is. All you have to do is add in your magic and I'll know whether you want to talk or whether you are requiring my help, Naruto explained. Mephisto looked baffled. He did not expect Naruto to offer him his help so easily. After all, they just met about 2 hours ago. And sure, they got on quite well, but this was just wow. Some devils who saw themselves as his friends were nowhere half as friendly as Naruto. He supposed he could offer Naruto help as well, albeit a more psychological one. Naruto, I'm sure you'll be contacted by the other factions soon enough. I suggest you don't use the form that you were using. After all, diplomacy dealt by people who looked like teenagers aren't the best form of diplomacy. Mephisto chuckled as Naruto gave him a pissed-off look. However, the blonde took that to mind. After all, one of the reasons why Old Man Hokage was a good diplomat was because his old look gave off such a knowledgeable appearance. I'll keep that in mind, Naruto replied as he walked towards the exit. As he was leaving Mephisto's castle to explore Lucifod, a small girl with long black hair ran past him. Her pink eyes were swelled with tears, and through his enhanced hearing, he heard a small sob from the girl's lips. Somehow, something inside him told him to follow her. It was as if there was an invisible force compelling Naruto to follow the black-haired girl. He supposed that seeing the girl running away from her fears reminded him of his situations when he was younger, as if he was seeing a reflection of himself in the girl. Little or not, he had to admit that the black-haired girl was fast, incredibly so. In a matter of minutes, she navigated herself out of Lucifod with him following her in the shadows. As he moved closer towards her, he clearly saw the track on tears on her cheeks. That, however, wasn't what surprised him most. Outside the city, it was a barren wasteland. Yet the little girl continued on running and running. He nearly blew his cover when she continued running towards the steep cliff. Yet suddenly the air near the cliff coalesced into a large staircase created from ice, allowing her to easily run across the hollow ravine. Naruto was surprised to say the least. After all, she seemed so little, yet was able to utilize ice with such little time. He supposed that it was a special ability for devils to use. After crossing the bridge, the little girl sat down, hugged her legs and started bawling. Her cries of hurt pained Naruto, and the blonde decided to use that moment to step in. Hearing the sound of approaching footsteps, the small girl looked up to find a blonde teen moving towards her. It surprised her to say the least, as she had thought that it would be some of her parents' personnel coming after her. Though arguably he could have been one of those personnel, albeit one whom she never saw. Was it Mummy or Daddy who sent you after me to bring me back? She asked the blonde-haired strangers, who simply looked confused. She supposed that his expression answered her question. Nah, I just saw you crying and decided to follow, the stranger answered. I wasn't crying, she replied petulantly. Obviously she could not show weakness. For all she knows, he could be a kidnapper hired to kidnap her, seeing that her family was a rather prominent one. Sure, you weren't? He answered as he flashed her a bright grin. Somehow she believed his words that reassured her. The blonde man then brought his hand to her, signaling her to take it, an action which she did as he pulled her up. Uzumaki Naruto, great to make your acquaintance, Naruto said as he bowed dramatically. Brushing the tears off her face, she smiled at his action as she gave him her name. I'm Serafal Citri. So Serafal-chan, why were you crying when I saw you? Naruto asked her the question he had been most suspicious about since he saw her. Serafal turned away, The question her asked was not one that she had wanted to answer, yet something about Naruto made her reply. I'm different. Different? Seraphol nodded at his question. She raised her right hand for him to see as she froze the air and formed a large shard of floating ice in it. So I see when you made that staircase, impressive by the way. The smiled as he commented, what's that problem? I think it's beautiful and amazing. My power, it hurts the people around me. Today I was swimming with my cousins and brother. The gift of water is the power gave you everyone in my family, you know? Everyone in my family has the ability to control and shape water, everyone except me. Somehow all I could do is this. The black-haired girl explained as she looked at the ice shard floating in her hand. Everyone started using their magic in the pool and they seemed to be having so much fun. My younger brother, Sinclair, is still too young to use his magic, but after seeing all our cousins use theirs, he wanted to play in the water with magic as well. I can't refuse Sin-chan, I never could. Using my magic, I froze the water and created creations of ice. It was just a small slide at first, but everyone started playing on it and they kept on wanting more and more things to play with, so I tried creating a castle made of ice. It was a disaster. I couldn't control my powers and I froze the whole room. And it hurt Sin-chan that he's now in the medical ward of my house. I followed father's instruction of control my powers, but it's not working. With that she curled herself into a little ball and started bawling. Naruto simply moved closer to her as he used his long arms to wrap her frail form, rubbing her back, providing her comfort as she silently sobbed. After a few minutes passed, Seraphol stopped her sobbing and looked up at Naruto. It was warm, being in his arms, contrastingly so from the freezing qualities of her powers. It was nice being in his arms, and dare she say it, she felt protected in his arms. She was amazed at her actions towards him. They only met a few minutes ago, yet somehow she felt as if she could trust him with her problems. Being with him simply banished her father's teachings that one should always remain regal and aloof. Why do I have this power? Why couldn't I simply be the same as everyone else? Why must I have so much power to that point that I can't control it? Am I a monster because of these powers? Will I be a monster if I continue using them? She sniffled as she asked him the questions that had plagued her life, the questions which continuously clouded her thoughts in her sleepless nights. You're not a monster. Looking into her violet orbs, he asserts. Seraphol-chan. You're a miracle. His answer made her softly smile as she soft blushed. I think it's just stupid to try and hold back something this amazing. I don't see the point at all. Do you? So I won't hurt anyone. I don't want to hurt you, Naruto. Her reply earned a chuckle from Naruto's lips as he brushed her tears-soaked hair from her face before he tied them into 2 ponytails. You won't, I'm just like you. It's impossible, Naruto spoke as he channeled chakra to his hand, forming 2 large icicle star-like bows to hold her hair. Besides, that would make me a monster too, wouldn't it? Seraphol shook her head dumbstruck, but she did manage to, you're not a monster. Well, if I'm not a monster then you're not one either, Naruto concluded. She had known that there were people who also use ice, but she never had the chance to talk to them. The Lucifuge family, for example, was renowned in their skills in using ice magic, though her family wasn't on great terms with. You're not a Lucifuge, are you? Father says that we shouldn't mingle with them, she asked. No, I'm not a Lucifuge, though I think your father's talking nonsense. Why should adults' affairs affect your life? And really, I think you should just let your powers go for one. Just let it go. You need to know your limits before you can train your skills in using them, right? Personally, I think you should just be yourself. Don't pretend to be something that you're not. Just be yourself. That way you won't be overstressed and you'll be able to control your magic much more easily. The blonde words widened Seraphol's violet eyes. No one had ever realized that her regal appearance had all been an act, and no one had ever told her that she could be herself. No one except Naruto. Her parents kept on telling her the importance of image that she must uphold, that she must be seen regal and all, yet Naruto said otherwise. See, can I really be myself? Father always, yes. You can be yourself. Why would you pretend to be someone else? He repeated. Seraphol was having a mental dilemma. True, her parents emphasized that image and postures are important, but they never say that she shouldn't be herself, though she felt that there has always been an implication towards the latter. Yet Naruto told her that she should fully embrace her personality, that doing so would allow her magic to be more controlled. He was a stranger that she had just met, yet she felt that she could trust him with her life. With that decision, she made up her mind. Nodding to him, she answered, "Okay, from this day onwards, I shall be 100% me." Naruto certainly thought that she mentally recovered fast, though that was a good thing. Elsewhere, the entire Citri family shuddered. "Naruto, will you be my friend? Aren't we already?" the blonde said as he grinned at her. His answer seemed to have satisfied her as her tired body fell limp on his as she fell asleep on Naruto's lap. Chuckling at her actions, he decided a rest would be nice and let sleep claim him as well. Naruto woke to a rather large dose of cold ice in his face. Standing in front of him was a rather worried Seraphol. "Naruto, you said that I'm not a monster, but I did hurt Shin-chan. What if she thinks that I'm a monster?" she exclaimed. He decided that even though there were stars in her sentence, she was rather distressed. "He won't," he assured. "But you don't know, well, should we go see?" She nodded at his proposal as he continued. "Can you fly?" She shook her head. "I'm too young, my wings aren't strong enough." "That's okay as well," he spoke. Walking to her, he lifted her small form and placed them onto his shoulders. Adjusting his light power to the minimum so that he won't hurt her, he opened a pair of his wings and took flight. "Wow, they're beautiful. You're not a devil, aren't you?" "If you're asking whether or not I have those black bat wings, then no, I'm not a devil. People call us angels, but I don't really know what we are, to be honest. I'm just here to see a friend." Traveling at a rapid pace, they soon arrived back in Lucifod. Using concealment magic on himself to avoid suspicion, he turned to Seraphol as he asked her for direction. She pointed towards a large mansion, which he quickly flew down to. Flying to the medical wing, the two peeked inside to find a small toddler with a similar black hair and violet eyes as Seraphol lying on a bed, crying as two nursemaids surrounded him. "That's Shin-chan. He's crying. Is he still angry with me?" Seraphol cried worriedly, tears threatening to fall from her eyes. "I'm sure he's not," Naruto spoke as he weaved a spying jutsu to hear what was going on inside. The results satisfied him and Seraphol, who was affected by the jutsu as well. "Nei-chan. Nei-chan," were the only words that the toddler uttered as she continued to wail. The two nursemaids looked horribly distressed but finally decided to leave the room. "Well, Seraphol-chan, let's go inside, shall we?" She nodded at his inquiry. Using his spell, he unlocked the windows and flew inside. Seraphol immediately ran towards Sinclair and wrapped the toddler's little body in her arms. The effects were immediate as Sinclair quickly became quiet. Naruto simply stood there and smiled, marveling at the love shared between the two. "Thank you for everything," Seraphol said as she turned towards him and sent him a grin. Naruto shyly rubbed the back of his head, nodding. He walked towards Seraphol and handed her a piece of crystal that he gave to Azazel and Mephisto. She looked at him questioningly, silently asking him what it was for. "Since we're friends now, you can call me whenever you want. Just add in your magic to the mirror, okay?" She nodded happily. "Take care of your big sister, she could be troublesome sometimes," Naruto said as he looked down at Sinclair in Seraphol's arms. The toddler merely laughed as Seraphol sent him an indignant glare, but she was still smiling. Opening a magic circle, Naruto waved at them. "Well, I'll see you later and don't cry too much. You're beautiful, but you're much more pretty when you're not crying." "Thanks, you too," Seraphol replied. "Haha, wait. What?" Naruto indignantly cried at her comment, but before he could complain, the magic activated, transporting him back to heaven. Until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened. Anatole France. After his trip to hell with Mephisto, he frequently visited the place many times. To say that Seraphol was thrilled would be an understatement. Naruto could not believe that the crying uncertain mess that was once Seraphal's Seatree could be so active. He frowned upon himself to even believe that Seraphal's personality would be similar to Hinata's. Not that he was unhappy. Most of his creation seemed unable to take jokes from him. Likewise, they overtly revered his existence. Having Seraphal as his friend came like a breath of fresh air. Most of the time she trained the usage of her power as Naruto further familiarized himself with his ice release. Her capability in controlling ice amazed Naruto greatly. Their initial meeting place seemed to have been terraformed. Using her ice, Seraphal created a gigantic castle, which was now their rendezvous. Being with his new friend brought his much joy that he sometimes forgot the existence of the various godly factions. A fact that caused him much headache, especially when Mephisto was now standing in front of him. I think we should start off by visiting Indra. I've never met him, but he was said to be quite peaceful, suggested that heterochromia man. You do know that these facts could be lying. People says that Hermes was a polite messenger, yet my meeting with him was anything but polite. Mephisto released a loud sigh at Naruto's statement. He supposed that Naruto's terrible first impression with the so-called godly entities was now taking its toll. I know that your first impression with them was unimpressive, but we will have to start somewhere if we want them to share to us about their magic. Mephisto reasoned. After being friends with Naruto for a while, he knew that the blonde have a simple weakness. Utilizing that weakness, he added, "Besides, you promised." Naruto orbs went wide at Mephisto reminder. His face scrunched up rather stressfully. The blonde lifted both of his hands as he surrendered. Fine, fine. You do know where to find the Indra guy, right? Naruto's question was met with a sophisticated nod from Mephisto as he formed a large magic circle, making a hand motion for Naruto to step in. The blonde sighed regretfully but did so anyway. In a flash of light, he was teleported to a rather wide clearing in the middle of a forest. Confused at the situation, he looked towards Mephisto for answers. Similar to your heaven, Indra's place is protected by a rather strong ward. We will have to get his attention and let him lower the ward before we can enter. I suppose blowing up the wards is a possibility, but that would damage the diplomacy. Spoke the devil. The blonde groaned about waiting but relent. Flying up to the edges of the ward, Mephisto released his own spell on it, a spell to ask for the lowering of the wards. He then flew down and sat on the ground. I suppose we're going to have to wait. His words emitted another set of groans from the blonde, but he relented. I'll explore these parts. Just alert me when those stuck-ups lower down the wards, K. Naruto said as he started walking inside the forest after seeing that devil nodded his acknowledgement. The forest gave Naruto a tranquil feeling. The large trees reminded him of the forest of death in the Chunin's exam. Funny how he missed of the event, seeing that it was incredibly dangerous then, being swallowed by a giant snake, then attacked by a pedophilic snake man and all that. Naruto's nerves surged up as he heard a loud sound of whimpering nearby. Fueling his body with chakra, he quickly moved towards the source of the sound. There stood a large tanned man facing a strange large lion, incredibly so, seeing that it was 5 meters high with a jewel adorned on its forehead. It was also quite obvious that the lion was losing. It looked incredibly tired, yet its golden fur seemed unaffected by any weapons. Naruto supposed that the large burly man realized this, judging from fact their spear, a bow and arrows are now lying on the floor. The large man was now donning a large club. With an incredible rush of speed he moved towards the large lion and slammed the club down on its head. The pain from the attack stunned the golden beast, giving the man a chance to strangle it. The beast whimpered in pain, realizing that its life was ending soon. Naruto was unable to watch anymore. He understood that large animals could threaten the well-being of humans, however he felt no malice coming from the large lion, yet the man was attacking in. Feeling the sense of righteousness surging in him, he jumped towards the man to deliver a rather strong kick. Dynamic entry. The blonde shouted as his feet connected the burly man's face, sending him flying across the forest, knocking down many trees. Guy-sensei must be proud of me. The blonde mumbled. threat was not solved, however, as Naruto sensed the burly man walking back towards the lion, a statement that he was quite strong. Sensing the presence of the burly man walking back, the large lion whimpered once more. Seeing Naruto as a source of defense, it quickly ran behind Naruto. The blonde turned to the lion with a grin. "Don't worry, big guy, I'll protect you," Naruto said. The large man finally walked the distance he was kicked across. Seeing the source of his pain, he sent a rather menacing glare at the blonde. "Why are you stopping me?" the burly man bellowed. "You're hurting this big guy without any reason to do so. I can't feel any malice from him. He won't hurt anyone." Naruto replied, though the black-haired man seemed to be ignoring any of his reasons. "I do not care. This Nemean lion shall be offered to Zeus, and I as his son, Heracles, will have the honor of killing this large beast." The man bellowed once more. Well shit, though Naruto. Why was his life so difficult? The name, Zeus, already set his blood boiling from what this Zeus guy had done to Prometheus. Now his son was going to kill a cuddly animal just to offer it for this Zeus guy. The fact that this Zeus is breeding with Prometheus' creation was already weird in Naruto's opinion. "I won't let you." Naruto growled his ultimatum. "You can't just go around hurting animals like that. You cannot stop me. I am Heracles, son of Zeus, the strongest man in the war." His speech was disrupted as Naruto decided he couldn't take any more bullshit from his burly Heracles guy who seemed to be as much of a bastard as Zeus, and decided to treat him to another high jump kick, sending his body flying through the forest once more. The large lion looked at Naruto's in amazement. It moved closer to the blonde as it purred in excitement. Seeing Naruto as an ally, the large lion licked his adoration, emitting a series of laughs from the blonde. The problem, however, was remained unresolved as Heracles walked out of the clearing once more, bruise cowering his body, eyes emitting rage. "That lion shall be mine," the bulky man proclaimed, raising his large club. He ran towards Naruto shouting, "A human like you cannot defeat me." In all honesty, Naruto grew quite tired of the man's resilience to harm a cute and cuddly animal. He gave 2 warnings with his rather soft kicks already, he supposed. Flaring his power, 10 brightly shining wings emerged from his back as his azure eyes gained a ripple pattern. Slowing, raising his arms as Heracles drew near, he whispered, "Shinra Tensei." Heracles shocked to see 10 pair of wings forming behind the blonde's back. He was further surprised that his large club did not reach the blonde boy. It was supposed to crush him to mush. Yet somehow, as the club descended, a sudden repulsive force was emitted from the blonde, strongly pushing him away. All his sense crumbled as his head was knocked into a nearby mountain, knocking him out. Seeing the threat dealt with, Naruto vanished his wings and rippled eyes as he turned back to the lion. "You're safe now. I suppose I'll have to get going. Mephisto is calling me," the shinobi said as he started walking back to Mephisto. He didn't expect the large lion to throw itself on him. Lying on the floor, he let out a chuckle as the lion licked his face continuously. Sensing what the lion was feeling, Naruto asked, "You want to come with me, big guy?" The question elicited a purr of approval from the lion. "Sure, but we'll gave to get back to Mephisto, so just follow me, okay?" Brushing the lion's mane for him to move over, Naruto stood up and walked back to Mephisto with a large lion following him. "Big bye, since you're my friend now, you want a name?" The lion yipped out a joyful approval. "I'll take that as a yes. How about Goldilocks?" The lion growled threateningly. "No, what about Sunny?" "Not Goldilocks," growled more threateningly. "No again. What about Regulus?" That brought out a purr of approval from Regulus. "Well, you brought a rather big friend over," was Mephisto's first reaction to seeing the large lion. "Yeah, this is Regulus. I helped him earlier and he decided to follow me. Could you believe it? This big guy called Heracles wanted to kill him as offering for this Zeus guy," Naruto complained. Mephisto's face scrunched up at the mention of Zeus. Releasing another sigh, he said, "Naruto, You do realize that if Zeus realized that you stopped his son from offering him the lion, our talks with the Greco-Roman factions would be quite difficult. Especially after you knocked his son out after knocking his messenger out. Naruto blanched at the reminder. It wasn't as if he wanted to antagonize any factions, it's just that they were so bastardly. He won't know about this anyway. His-san didn't seem to me as a crybaby. Anyway, we'll deal with Zeus later. You called me? Yes, Indra had decided to greet us. He should be coming down about now. The clouds above the ninja and devil opened as a rather weird-looking man flew down towards them. The weird man donned a buzz-cut style. Around his body were various kind of jewelries, from gold to topaz to amethyst to sapphire. The gemstones all over his body seemed to be so much lights that Naruto's eyes hurt. Even his large lion friend turned around from the bling that is Indra. Ah, Naruto, this is Indra. Indra, this is Naruto. It's Lord Indra to you. The bling man retorted haughtily. Sure Indra. Mephisto here wants to know if you want to share your magic with us so we can spread it for the humans around the world. Naruto's words seemed to further seethe Indra as his face turned the shade of a burnt tomato. Never. Indra spat. Especially with you. You must be what the humans are starting to call God. And the place where those winged beings resides must be your place as well. The nerve to call it heaven. There is only one heaven, and that's my Svarloga. The Hindu god further ranted. The blonde grew quite tired of Indra's useless ranting and started picking his ears as if to ignore the continuing sound from Indra's mouth. Mephisto face palmed at seeing the disastrous diplomacy. So, Naruto spoke after Indra finally ended his rant. So I shall not help. I'm sure you think that you are powerful, and you are, I suppose, but this is heresy. How dare you call yourself God, and claim the word heaven from us? There is only one true heaven, and that is Svarloga. Indra continued his rant, ignoring the blonde protest, saying, I did not call myself God. I did not call my place heaven. And the humans wanted to call it themselves. I had nothing to do with it. Are you done? The shinobi asked after Indra ended another of his long rants. I am. I hate you. Besides, you look like a kid. Indra stomped his feet like a mental teenager before he flew back to his place, leaving a rather annoyed Naruto with a depressed Mephisto. Is he serious? Asked the blonde. I suppose he is, and see, I told you before that you shouldn't be looking like a teenager. This is the worst diplomatic mission ever, complained Mephisto. Well, whatever. I got a new friend. Naruto played with Regulus' fur as the lion licked him once more. Well, Mephisto, if you have another plan, just call me. With that, Naruto created a magic circle to transport himself and Regulus to heaven, leaving a distraught-looking Mephisto who was left face-palming. Naruto-sama, Lady Ophis is here to see you. Samael informed him the moment he arrived back in heaven. Okay. Thanks, Samael. Oh, anyway, Samael, this is Regulus, and Regulus, this is Samael. The large lion woofed happily as it proceeded to lick Samael, who was quite shocked at the start but soon released a chuckle. The three soon walked over to where Ophis was standing. Sensing them approach, Ophis turned around. Hey, Ophis. This is Regulus, my new friend. Regulus, this is Ophis. With that large lion walked over to the little girl in a black gothic Lolita dress and licked her. Ophis' face remained impassive, but she did spoke. I shall be your friend as well. Naruto chuckled at her reaction and asked why she was here. The Great Red is in my home. Ophis once told Naruto once about Great Red. If he remembered correctly, Great Red is a large red dragon with powers equal to Ophis. Did he attack you? Ophis shook her head. Well, now Naruto was in a dilemma. It was quite clear that Ophis wanted Naruto's help in forcing Great Red out of the dimensional gap. Personally, the blonde thought that it was quite extreme, seeing the size of the dimensional gap. Though for someone who enjoyed the quietness of the dimensional gap, the existence of Great Red must have been terrible. Moreover, the power of the Great Red was something to be feared. If he, Ophis, and Great Red were to fight, A catastrophe that could shake the dimensions could occur. Deciding what to do, Naruto continued. Why don't you stay here instead? It's going to be like how things were when we were on the land of tangible clouds. Besides, I'll be your playmate and you don't have to be alone in that boring dimensional gap. How's that? Ophis looked up at him in thought. Losing her home to Great Red was annoying, but if she's not staying there at the moment, she supposed that it would be fine. That is acceptable. I shall stay here, however I still want my home. Well, you can go back to the dimensional gap whenever you want it if you miss home. And if Great Red annoys you, you can always come back here. The black-haired girl nodded, a little pleased with the event. Well, do you want to play cards? Ophis smiled. The most terrible poverty is loneliness and the feeling of being unloved. The Blessed Teresa of Kolkata. Naruto, my experiment just revealed that you could put beings into sacred gears as well. Spoke Azazel, the black-winged angel who was flying next to him. Now that perked up Naruto's interest. He simply created and fueled the whole heavenly system, but the one who truly took true interest in its mechanism was Azazel. How? Well, in theory it works like your Fuinjutsu. So seal the being, then link it to the magic circle. Visualize its form, then boom. You get an enhanced version of a sacred gear that can talk to you. Though I suppose that you're the only one who could do this, being the only one continuously linked to the heavenly system and all. Well, that is quite interesting, said an attentive Mephisto. Azazel, you really should stop giving Naruto-sama ideas. The things he gets up to is already bad as it is. Being friends with Mephisto-sama is fine, but going to the devil's world is too much. What if the aggressive devils attack you? Samael's statement earned a glare from his creator. Sorry Naruto-sama, I just had to say it. The angel murmured. It's nothing to worry about, I don't think they could hurt me anyway, so that's fine. Anyway Mephisto, are we nearly there yet? There, meant Asgard. Somehow Mephisto had secured a meeting with Odin, father of the Aesir, for their plans to share the magic of the various factions. Seeing the disaster when they met with Indra, the devil begged Naruto to bring Samael as a company and further begged him to leave Regulus at home. As they were leaving the floating clouds, Azazel was there to visit Naruto. Mephisto saw the chance for a relationship between Asgard and the fallen angels and insisted on Azazel's involvement in their mission as well. So here they were, flying towards the dimensional entrance of Asgard. As they reached the invisible portal that Mephisto somehow knew was there, the devil sent a wave of magic towards it to act as a knock and told the two angels and one fallen angel to wait. I hope that this won't be like last time, mumbled Naruto. Don't worry, I've guaranteed entrance for this one, replied the devil. With a rush of wind, the invisible door opened to reveal a rainbow passageway. Asgard is at the other end of the Bifrost Bridge, said Mephisto as he took the initiative in taking the first step into the rainbow portal as the other three soon followed. The walk was rather long but never boring. It was as if they were walking on a void bridge, rightfully so, as the bridge somehow required no support to exist, it was just magically there. The shiny darkness seen around the bridge emitted its own sense of beauty, and when added with the multicolored bridge, the walk was an invigorating experience. The sight at the end of the journey further amazed Naruto and his two creations. The architecture standing before them emitted rays of golden light. Everything was tall and soaring. There was majesty about it, but also a slight coldness to the place. Ah, there it is, said Mephisto. Before them a chariot pulled by two goats, drove by a large man parked. I am Mephisto, and I have an appointment with Odin. The man nodded. I have been sent here by the All-Father, please. He spoke as he gestured for the four of them to enter the large chariot. What's that? Naruto pointed at a rather strange architecture as they journeyed their way via chariot. That's where we're going to, the All-Father's palace. He driver spoke and once more went into his silent mode. The structure was enormous. It looked like a giant set of gold organ pipes that have been rearranged to look like a triangular construction. The carriage stopped in front of the palace as they all got out. The chariot driver guided them into the building, down a few corridors, up a flight of stairs and finally got out to an open terrace, which had several tables, some food and chairs. From it, the splendor of Asgard was fully viewed. You will be called when the All-Father awakes from his sleep. The driver spoke, then left, leaving a rather annoyed Naruto who simply groaned. I'm now believing that your idea to visit the different factions is not that brilliant. They're all stuck-up assholes. I mean, we have to wait because he's asleep? The statement was directed at Mephisto, who released a sigh. The devil didn't expect this sort of welcoming either. After all, everything seemed to be going rather well until the driver told them that his master was asleep. Taking the initiative to do something, Naruto plopped down into one of the chairs and brought a rather weird-looking fruit to his mouth. To his surprise, the fruit was rather nice with its luscious filling and flavor. Try this, it's nice, he said as he signaled his three friends to sit down. They three. After taking a single bite from the fruit, Mephisto began. Naruto, you really should alter your looks, like I told you, you look too young. Naruto gave his the look and continued to munch on the weird fruit. I'm serious. And I hope that you're not going to do anything damn it. Before he finished his sentence, he realized that Naruto had disappeared. Naruto was bored with Mephisto moans and comments about his looks. As he listened to Mephisto drawled on, his sensitive hearing detected the sound of someone crying, someone young. The sound was reminiscent of his childhood. It sounded pained yet innocent. It was that feeling that compelled him to look, and so he did. What he found was a pale black-haired boy clad in a green, black and gold tunic, black pants and black boots curled up in a corner of a derelict room in the palace. Walking up to the small boy, he crouched down and asked, "Why are you crying?" "I'm not, princes don't cry," the boy mumbled as he sniffled out. Well, what do you know, thought Naruto. He didn't expect the boy to be a prince. Of course they don't. Tell me, do they treat you differently? Do they make you feel like you don't belong here? His inquiry made the prince look up towards him, eyes filled with questions. How do you know? Been there, done that, I suppose. You reminded me of myself somehow. I can't really explain how yet though. The two were engulfed into a period of awkward silence until the prince broke it by voicing, "I'm Loki, Prince of Asgard." Naruto grinned, stood up and gave Loki an exaggerated bow. "Well, my exalted prince, Naruto Uzumaki is at your service." The blonde reply lightened up the mood in the room, and his actions earned a small smile from Loki's lips. "You're not one of us, are you?" Well, that surprised Naruto. He hadn't opened out his wings and his halo was hidden, so he did look like the people here. "How did I found out?" "The way you're dressed, for one. I've never seen you at court, and I have quite an aptitude in magic, so I could sense the magic from you. A different kind of magic which people here are surrounded by, so there." Loki answered the blonde's mental question quickly. Naruto was impressed with the little boy, who in his opinion was incredibly clever. "Well, you're correct. We're here for some kind of diplomatic mission, I suppose." "What mission?" "My friend wanted the three factions to share their magic with one another. We can then share into the humans so they could have some degree of power to protect themselves." The mention of magic seemed to have perked up Loki's interest, judging from the light that seemed to sparkle in his eyes. Wow. Can you show some of them to me?" "Sure, Henge." Smoke engulfed Naruto, and as it uncovered, Naruto was in the form of the chariot driver. "Wow. You became Heimdall." Loki's statement was met with the blonde's confusion until he realized that it was probably the name of the chariot's driver. "That's the name of the chariot driver, right?" "Yep, but he's not a chariot driver though. He drives it around, but he's actually the gatekeeper of the 9 realms. 9 realms? Naruto looked quizzically. "Yep, we're on Asgard. From it you can visit 8 other worlds, though we can only do that with Heimdall's permission. There's a room which controls the Bifrost Bridge, and Heimdall and Father are the only people allowed inside the room. You can't really sneak in it cause it's always heavily guarded." The prince explained as Naruto nodded in amazement. "Anyway, which of the 9 realms are you from?" I've never heard of this 9 realm thing, but I'm from Earth. All I know is that from Earth, You could use the dimensional gap to move between two other worlds called heaven and hell by the humans on Earth. Well before I knew the existence of this place anyway. Earth. I think that's Midgard. You're a Midgardian? I guess. I've never met a Midgardian before. Father never let me travel between realms, but someday I'll visit all 9 of them. The boy's thoughts blurred as he thought about his possible future. However, his face soon morphed into an expression of uncertainty. Will you teach me what you just did? Loki asked. Naruto knew that magic was what they were here to negotiate on and he shouldn't be sharing it until the deal is concluded. But somehow, he saw a reflection of himself in Loki. It reminded him of his unquenched thirst for ninjutsu, a thirst which no one cared about until he graduated. We're here to share magic anyway, so whatever, he thought. Sure. Naruto voiced as he gave Loki the nice guy pose. Loki's face lit brightly as he finally gave Naruto his true smile. Well, what I just did was called henge, as you saw. It allows you to change your appearance into anything you want. First, you must know the hand seals. For henge you need the dog, boar and ram seal. The young prince, Loki, as Naruto had predicted, had an aptitude for magic. After 3 hours of teaching the boy, he was able to perform the henge with only a few flaws. Time seemed to fly for Loki when Naruto was around. He never had anyone to teach him magic or to truly enjoy his company. True, Thor was his brother, but Thor never shared Loki's interest for magic. Time flew so fast that after the 3 hours with Naruto, the prince realized that he was late for his class. Damn, he muttered, wondering what he should do. He was afraid that he won't see Naruto again, but he was also afraid of the punishment he could receive for missing his classes. What's troubling you? Asked the blonde as he saw Loki's troubled face. I'm late for my class, but I want to be here with you, he replied before he continued. See, can you come to the class with me? Naruto did not see a problem with that. If Mephisto, Samael or Azazel needed him, they would have contacted him through the crystal shards. However, upon reaching into his pockets, he seemed to have forgotten his magical crystal shards back home. However, when he looked into Loki's pleading eyes, his decision was made. Though in his mind there was still one remaining problem. Won't your teacher recognize my magic signature? Loki smirked at that as he explained his plan to the blonde. I have a cloaking spell. It will change your magic signature to be similar to that of the Asgardian. All you have to do is use henge and look my age. The ninja nodded at the sound reasoning. With a poof, Naruto was in his 12-year-old self supporting similar clothes to Loki, only in orange. As the prince waved his hand, an array of magic formula emerged on Naruto before they all disappeared. Done. Let's go, Loki voiced as he dragged Naruto with him. On the other side of the room sat one bored fallen, one curious angel and one heavily in thought devil as a herald walked in. The All-Father is still in deep sleep, however, the ruling council will see you in 10 minutes. Samael brought out his crystal shard and sent his creator a signal, however it was not received. Naruto-sama is not responding. He moaned. Maybe your shard is broken. Azazel replied as he and Mephisto tried contacting Naruto without success. Well damn, what do we do now? Mumbled Azazel. The room was filled with stress until Mephisto spoke. We might as well use this as an opportunity. Whilst Naruto is incredibly kind-hearted, he doesn't tolerate stuck-up people, and I feel that this council is filled with such people. I propose that someone plays God instead of Naruto. Samael was deep in though. Whilst it felt wrong that he should usurp Naruto's position, he felt that his creator wouldn't mind, judging from his continuous complaints about being called God. It seemed that Azazel was in the same train of thought as the fallen angel said. Good idea, I don't think he would mind. He doesn't like this God thing anyway. And if I may suggest, I propose you transform yourself to look older. Naruto never listened to me, but appearances are incredibly important. You lose credibility when you appear as a teenager. Samael nodded at the devil's suggestion. Naruto-sama taught me how to transform. I'll play God in his stead. Samael spoke. With a poof, he transformed into an old-looking man. A man who Naruto called Hokage Gigi when he was telling his creations about his past. Add more hair and definitely more beard. Long beard brings out wisdom, Mephisto said as he walked around Samael, judging his appearance. The angel nodded as he followed the devil's advice. Soon his face supported long white hair and a long fluffy white beard. Azazel fell on the floor as he laughed loudly at Naruto's new appearance. The herald entered once more announcing, "The council shall see you now. Because there is sadness, we cherish happiness, and because there is anger, kindness is born." Cynthia, after passing various hallways and staircases, they emerged out into an arena-like area. In the center of the arena stood a strong-looking bearded man with blonde hair. He was surrounded by 4 other boys. "Brother!" shouted one of the blonde boys in the arena as he caught sight of Loki. His shout caused the man, the black-haired boy, the ginger-haired boy and the other blonde-haired boy to turn towards Naruto and Loki. Naruto was quite surprised by how Loki's brother could be blonde and looked incredibly different from Loki. He wanted to ask Loki the question but refrained from doing so, thinking that it might be unsympathetic towards the black-haired prince's feelings. Loki nodded towards the group as he and Naruto walked towards them. "Sorry I'm late for the lesson, Balder. Mind telling me why?" Bald questioned, tilting his head to have a good look at Naruto. "I was with my new friend," Loki replied as he signaled his hand at Naruto. "And who might he be?" "He's Naruto and he's the son of father's new counselor," Loki answered. His poker face was on and Naruto felt that Balder was truly buying in Loki's words. "I thought that he should get to know everyone since he's here," continued the black-haired prince. That's very thoughtful of you. Well, I suppose he could join our class." Loki nodded as he turned to his new friend and pointed his hand towards the blonde who first called him. "That's my brother, Thor. The other 3 are his imbecilic comrades, the blonde's Fandral, the ginger's Volstagg and the black-haired one's Hojun. They called themselves the Warrior 3. Loki whispered the last part as he quietly sneered. Naruto supposed that there was some bad history between Loki and Thor's friends. His hostility only seemed direct at the Warrior 3 after all. "Well, hey everyone," Naruto said as he awkwardly waved at them. Thor responded with his own wave but his friends simply gave Naruto a short look before their eyes turned back to Thor. "Fanboys," was the first thought that came to Naruto. He thought that he had escaped these fan people after Sakura overcame her obsession for Sasuke. Naruto and Loki moved closer to the group as Balder continued his lesson on weaponries and hand-to-hand combat. It was all quite interesting to the shinobi but one look at Loki and Naruto could tell that he was bored, incredibly so judging from his yawns. Balder seemed to have noticed this if the narrowing of his eyes meant anything. Finishing his speech on the usage of swords, he demanded a demonstration between 2 students. "I'll do it," cried Volstagg as the prince next to him started muttering something about incessant shouting. "And who will duel Volstagg?" "Loki should. After all, he was yawning when you were speaking, so he should be pretty confident about his abilities," quipped Fandral. Balder nodded his approval as he signaled for Loki to move into the arena. "Fine," Loki calmly spoke, yet inside he was terrified. Everyone knew that weaponry and hand-to-hand combat wasn't his forte. It was quite clear that the Warrior 3 were trying to humiliate him in front of his first friend. Looking at Naruto, he saw the blonde sending him a silent, "good luck." He did not know how he should fight. The 3 discriminated against him due to his fighting methods and he was worried that Naruto would do the same. They got into their stance as they reached the center of the arena. With a "start" from Balder, Volstagg rushed at Loki who quickly went on the defensive, rapidly dodging all of Volstagg's moves. The ginger-haired boy was annoyed with the prince's evasion and fastened his offensive. Loki knew that this could not continue. Stamina was not one of his strong points. Sure, he could evade Volstagg's dreadfully slow and predictable strikes, but he couldn't evade them forever. Taking the blow with his sword is also as no his strength simply could not match Volstagg's. Defeating Volstagg seemed impossible unless he used magic. But what would Naruto says? Will he consider it as cheating? Will he consider it to be something that Loki should not have practiced? No, he won't. After all, he taught Loki the transformation magic. Deciding that losing in front of his first friend was unacceptable, he decided that magic must be used. Volstags was enraged by his inability to land hits on Loki. He was so focused on doing so that he didn't hear the snapping of Loki's fingers. With a loud thump, the gingered boy tripped on a rather large vine that appeared out of nowhere, causing him to land unceremoniously onto the area. Feeling the coldness of Loki's blade on his throat, he realized that he had lost. "You cheated!" Volstagg shouted as he felt the anger surging through his veins. "You used your stupid little tricks again. Tricks meant for girls." The crowd was now walking towards the two as Volstagg continued to shout at Loki. "Volstagg's right. You cheated, Loki. You can't just trip people for the win. That's cheating," cried Fandral as he reached the two. Hojun nodded in agreement. Thor walked up to Loki and pushed the blade away from Volstagg's neck. "They're right, brother. It's unbecoming of us to use magic tricks," he said, turning to the black-haired prince. Loki sent a betrayed look to his brother. "Not you too," he voiced. Naruto did not know what to make of the scene. He could not find the wrongness of Loki's action. In his mind, a battle was a battle and you use everything you have to win. "Don't be a sore loser." Naruto directed his words at the gingered-haired boy, who returned him a glare that he simply ignored. Walking up to Loki, he clapped the prince's shoulders. "You were amazing," he genuinely said. Loki turned towards him, sending Naruto gazes of gratitude. "Did you not see him using those tricks? Those are for girls," Fandral added. The blonde shinobi finally realized how machismo Asgard was. He hoped that Tsunade no Bachan was here to put them all in place with her freakish strength. The concept that magic was a female's art was ridiculous. "They are right, Loki. You should not have used your magic during a sparring match, nor should you use them in any other situation. It's unbecoming for the Prince of Asgard to rely on magic." Well, damn, even the teacher seemed like a sentimental old fool who simply preferred rough combat. It seemed like the men here aspired to be like Rock Lee. "Father uses magic," argued Loki. "Your father uses magic to protect the realm. His magic has a purpose. Yours does not. You use it to play around and play pranks. You should end your studies of magic. You should have realized this the moment you were refused a tutor in the magical arts," Balder said as he gave Loki the "don't argue with me" look. Pranks. Well, that was something Naruto could relate to. No wonder he was drawn to Loki. And wasn't what Balder said quite contradictory? Who's to say that Loki couldn't use his magic to defend the realm? After all, ninjutsu was what ninja used to defend their villages. Loki sent Balder a dark glare as the man let out a loud huff. "Class dismissed. I want all of you here next week, same time. And do not be late," the combat instructor said, realizing that he couldn't conduct his teaching anymore lesson from the growing tension between Loki and the self-named Warrior 3. Tired of seeing the children fight, he quickly exited the arena. "Brother, using sorcerer in a duel is unbecoming of you. But worry not, I will make sure that Volstagg forgive you for your accidental sorcery." Thor smiled and he spoke. Loki presented him with another glare as Naruto shot him a disbelieving look as the blonde prince left the arena, followed by his fanboys. "He doesn't get it, does he?" questioned the shinobi. "No, he doesn't. He's too thick and too self-righteous to understand the situation. He thinks that his friends are helping me. Helping me? Could you believe that?" The blonde could see that Loki's anger was at its limits. "Why didn't you use magic at the start of the spar?" Naruto said, trying to change Loki's train of thought. "I thought you wouldn't be my friend if I did so. Everyone else here said I shouldn't use my magic. They said that I should focus on physical combat. I thought that if you saw me using magic during a spar you'll hate me for it." The prince spoke as he looked down at his feet. Moving his small hands towards the prince's face, he forced Loki to make eye contact with him. "Are we friends?" he asked the prince. "I don't know," Loki said, looking troubled and uncertain. Do you want to be my friend? Loki nodded. Then from now on we're friends. And I'll always support my friends, so you have nothing to be worried about, cause I'll always be by your side, okay? He ended as he freed his hand from the boy's cheeks. Loki nodded once more before he suddenly jumped at Naruto and grabbed him into a strong hug as he bawled his eyes out. There, he said as he hugged the boy back. He supposed that Loki's matured attitude was made as a facade to protect himself from the strong opinion of the Asgardian. Seeing the mature-looking boy bawling over him simply emphasized that he was still a child. So, what do you say to pranking them all? That earned a smile from Loki. Samael, Mephisto and Azazel followed the herald to the throne room. Samael stood at the front, flanked by Mephisto and Azazel to radiate importance. Golden abundance was revealed in the form of the throne room as the door opened. The golden throne remained empty. However, there were 6 men standing around the throne room. Azazel supposed that they were the counselors, ruling instead of the All-Father. Dear angelic visitors, it is unfortunate that the All-Father just fell into deep sleep. He had simply collapsed 3 hours before you arrived. It could be the workings of fate, working against the God of some newly created religion. One of the counselors spoke, sneering at the end as he glared at Samael, who he believed to be God. Mephisto had to restrain Samael from attacking the man outright, an action that would simply destroy the diplomacy. Mephisto could feel the droplets of his sweat as he re-evaluated his plan. Sure, he expected the Asgardians to act prideful and vain, but he did not expect the counselors to directly snub Naruto. Worst was for them to snub Naruto in front of Samael. The devil remembered Naruto telling him that he would trust Samael with his life, and he was sure that Samael has unwavering loyalty for him. That loyalty now seemed to be a double-sided sword when the angel was willing to take every action available to preserve his creator's pride. Now, there's no need to be rude. Lord Odin was incredibly interested in a pact between our two factions. It is unfortunate that he still have not fully recovered from our last war and still fall into deep sleep once in a while. Well, at least not all of the counselors were rude bastards. War? Questioned Azazel. Yes, 12 years ago Asgard went to war with Jotunheim. The battle between Lord Odin and the Frost King of the giant Luffy tired him greatly that he now occasionally fell into deep sleep to restore his former power. Tyr. How could you give them that information? What if they decide to invade us? Spoke the counselor who snubbed Naruto. Dalinar, the All-Father agreed to a peaceful negotiation. It is only right to share information with them. Tyr closed his eyes in thought before he opened them, smirking as he did so. I suppose that will be fine. They don't seem to present a threat to Lord Odin with their comparatively small power levels. Strange how the one called God have a lower level of power than one of his followers. Fearing their cover-up destroyed, Mephisto quickly spoke. I followed God, not for his power but for his wisdom. Dalinar smiled as he nodded while Tyr sneered. We regret to inform you that in Odin's absence, unless all 6 members of the council agrees to a point, a decision cannot be reached. As you can see, Lord Tyr and some of us could not agree that a pact would be most beneficial for Asgard. Therefore I suggest you wait until Lord Odin awakes. If you do, we shall prepare accommodations for all of you. How long does the All-Father usually sleep? We cannot tell. It could be hours or it could be years. We hope it is the former. Mephisto nodded at Tyr's answer. We shall stay in Asgard for the moment. Brilliant. If you want to leave this realm, simply ask Heimdall, the man who took you here. He will open the Bifrost to allow entrance to Midgard. Realm teleportation does not work in Asgard as the Bifrost acts as a defense mechanism. Dalinar explained. We thank you for your time, counselors. Samael spoke as the 3 were led out the throne room. The herald then led them to their quarters. Before leaving he left the 3 to their own devices. Mephisto-sama, I doubt Naruto-sama will agree to wait. You do know how hot-headed he sometimes is. I do, but he'll have to deal with it, said the devil petulantly. Of course he knew Naruto was hot-headed. who in their right mind would take an incredibly large lion as a pet. Well, sorry to say, but I'm leaving. The fallen angels need me and this endless waiting is not helping. Plus I need to spread something on Earth. Azazel said, waving at Mephisto and Samael as he left the room. The devil looked troubled as Samael, in god form, looked tired. Naruto followed Loki as the two sneaked around the castle sneakily. He simply applauds the brilliance of the prince's plan. The boy had created a spell to change the color of anything that comes into contact with the transparent magic water. It was by no means dangerous, simply like food coloring. Adding on to this was the fact that Loki created the spell without any help, personally researching the magical theorems and formulas, as there was no one on Asgard willing to teach him magic. So here they were, sneakily sneaking towards the main water supply room. Seeing two guards walking towards the room, Loki fired his hypnosis spell towards the two of them. Forming two clones, Naruto ordered them to hide the sleeping guards. He and Loki then transformed themselves into the two guards and walked towards the water supply room. "We're here for our time shift," said Naruto. He let out a soft sigh of relief as the two sentinels guarding the door nodded before they walked away. After they were out of sight, he and Loki entered the room. The room was decorated by shades of blue mosaics, giving it an aquatic feel. In the center was a large pool of clear water. Loki had explained to him that the magic operates to magically cultivate the water vapors from the air to supply the palace main water reserve. As Loki reached the water reserve, he closed his eyes to concentrate. Various magic formulas appeared above the water before they sank down and completely dissolved to become one with the liquid. The prince turned to him as he whispered, "It's done." Naruto sent him back a large grin as he gave the prince a high five. After they dragged the two sleeping guards back to the door, the two left the premises. Resonating chuckles of mirth along the corridor as they did so. Naruto wondered if he would be staying to see the outcome of the prank when Loki asked, "How long will you be staying here?" "I'm not sure, to be honest. The driver guy said we have to wait until your father wakes up." His answer earned a bright smile from Loki. "Great. I'm sure you'll be here for a while, seeing that father just fell into his sleep this morning." He was glad that he would be able to enjoy the result of their prank with Loki. However, hearing that Odin just fell asleep brought to him a sneaking suspicion that this whole diplomacy thing will somehow fail. It was starting to get dark and suspicions could be aroused if Loki returned to his quarters late. However, his advice for the prince to leave brought up a frown from Loki's face. "Will I see you tomorrow?" "Of course, I won't leave without saying goodbye, you know. I'll wait for you in the room we first met, Kay. And don't eat your breakfast tomorrow." He whispered the last part. Loki grinned and chuckled at his response. The boy then hugged him before he ran off. Naruto released his transformation and expanded his sensory until he found where Mephisto and Samael were. To his surprise, Azazel was not there. He quickly made his way across the crisscrossing hallways and staircases until he arrived at his quarters. Opening the door, he saw a stressed-looking Mephisto with a long-bearded version of Hokage Gigi. "What? It's me, Naruto-sama," spoke fake Hokage Gigi, who he immediately recognized to be Samael. "Why are you looking like Hokage Gigi?" Naruto questioned as he pointed accusingly at Samael. The angel looked down guiltily as he explained. "Well, Naruto-sama, the councils wanted an audience with you. We tried contacting you, but somehow the crystal shards are not working. So I decided to act in your stead." He supposed that it was a reasonable explanation. It was his fault in forgetting his crystal shards anyway. "Good thinking, Samael, but if you said you were acting in my stead, why are you not in my body?" Mephisto-sama suggested that it would be more credible for our cause if you were to look older. Of course, it must have been Mephisto. The devil had been continuously complaining to him about his looks. He glared accusing at the devil, but it was ineffective, as the devil was looking elsewhere to ignore his killing intent. Calming himself, he asked Samael. "So, the council said that they could not make any decision without unanimous vote when the All-Father is sleeping. They suggest that we wait." Mephisto-sama told them that we would be staying for a week. Would that be okay, Naruto-sama? That was more than okay. It was brilliant. God knows that Loki needs some positive company after being continuously bullied by Thor's friends and the society itself. Sure, he replied. His answer immediately turned Mephisto's gaze towards himself. The devil was scrutinizing him closely. No bickering? Mephisto asked. Nope. Is there something you would like to tell us, Naruto? The devil narrowed his eyes as he asked. Naruto gave him his best poker face as he replied. Not at all. Turning to Samael he continued, you continue looking like that here K. Do whatever Mephisto wants because I refuse to look that old dadbeo. He cried as he walked into his bedroom, leaving a joyful-looking Samael and a doubtful-looking Mephisto. You should have seen those imbeciles' face. I never thought Volstag's face could be more orange. Fandral and Hojun were screaming when they realized that the shower turned them orange instead of cleaning them. I haven't seen Thor yet, but I think he's in the same situation as those three. Serves them right, HMPFF, Loki giggled crazily as he narrated the situation to Naruto. Orange obviously was the courtesy of Naruto. The blonde chuckled at the prince's outburst. He enjoyed the prank as well, especially when he saw Samael and Mephisto's face turning orange after they washed their faces. Loki crazy laughing came to a halt when his stomach suddenly protested. He blushed as Naruto continued laughing at his antics. Hungry? He asked the prince. Of course, but I don't want my lips, teeth and tongue to turn orange, do I? He mumbled. Crawling closer to Naruto, he asked, do you have anything to eat? Naruto grinned. I sure do. It's the food for the gods. Using Banbutsu Sozo, he created 2 bowls of Ichiraku's ramen. Loki looked at the weird food, which smells oddly nice. What is it? His question was met with a stunned look from Naruto. It's ramen. The food of the gods. People call Father God, but I never saw him eating it. He must be hiding it then, Naruto replied as Loki nodded. The prince, however, continued to stare at the food. The blonde soon realized that the problem lies in the chopsticks. Creating a fork, he handed them to Loki, who muttered a thank you before he decided to have his first taste of ramen. Loki sighed happily as the golden broth entered his mouth and soothed his senses. This is delicious, he shouted as he turned to face Naruto. Father must be incredibly selfish to be keeping something like this all to himself, he muttered. He must be. We shared them with the humans by placing bowls in ramen in random places. They like it so much that it's now a national food of the Japanese, said Naruto, as the prince continued eating in awe. After the two finished eating 40 bowls of chakra created ramen, Naruto asked, well, what do you want to do now? Will you teach me more magic? The blonde's nod earned a large grin from the boy. I want to visit other realms as well, but I don't think we could do that. The rooms where the Bifrost's key is kept is more securitized and we need Heimdall's fingerprint to go in. Loki's statement was met with a doubtful look from Naruto. Tell you what, I'll teach you 2 jutsu today, then we're going to explore those realms of yours. The green-eyed boy beamed happily at his reply. That day, Naruto taught Loki his favorite shadow clone jutsu and the transparency jutsu created by Jiraiya. Loki proficiency in magic made teaching much faster and easier. Whilst Loki could only create 5 shadow clones, Naruto was impressed at his progress, as beneath all his mature acts, Loki was still a kid. As night came, Loki looked worriedly at him, asking, how? He was cut off by Naruto, who said, don't stress yourself, leave everything to me. Don't forget to henge yourself orange to avoid any suspicion, he shouted as Loki ran off after he gave Naruto a big hug. The two of them were effectively hiding themselves with the transparency jutsu when Heimdall walked out of the treasury where the Bifrost key was kept. After the burly man left their sight, Naruto grinned. The thin veil of ice on the magical fingerprint scan went unnoticed by Heimdall. Canceling the transparency jutsu, Naruto called the veil to his hand and hinged the same fingerprint to fit the scan. His grin widened as the door opened. In the center of the room lies a large key-like staff protected by arrays of magical formulas. Turning on his Rinnegan, he slowly drained the spell without activating the alarms, using his Preta path until he finally reached the key. Augmenting the Asura path with the human path, he analyzed the workings of the key. As he expected, after his hand left the key, the protective magic reappeared. However, he had achieved his goals. Leaving the room, he saw Loki looking at him in awe. That was wicked. He chuckled at Loki's antics. But why didn't you take the key? The prince questioned. Because that would surely raise the alarms when Heimdall patrols the room tomorrow. Loki nodded, still confused at how they would move between the realms, but continued to follow Naruto nonetheless. Okay. Create a shadow clone and fill it with as much magic as you can, Naruto said when they arrived back in the derelict room. The boy nodded at his command. With a poof, 2 Locus was in front of Naruto. Moving his hand to feel the energy of the clone, he gave Loki a satisfied nod. He created a clone of his own before he scooped up the real Loki, earning a few protest from the boy as he walked to the window. He activated his transparency jutsu to incorporate Loki in it before he opened a pair of his wings. Be good, he said to the 2 clones before he flew out of the windows with Loki. The boy in his arms laughed and giggled as they flew. Naruto couldn't help but smile at his antics. His little hands soon moved towards the blonde's wing as he caressed them. Whoa, it's so soft. I wish I have wings, murmured Loki. Still confused about Naruto's plan, he questioned. What's happening? Watch, replied the blonde as they stopped in midair. Holding Loki with one arm, he concentrated his powers in his free hand. Using Banbutsu Sozo, a metallic substance soon formed before I took shape as a replica of the Bifrost key. The process caused the boy in his arm to emit a small wow. The Bifrost key was more of an activator than being a key itself, as it drains in magic to open the door to the different realms. Fueling the key with his magic, he opened the portal of the Bifrost bridge. He stepped inside the portal as the door closed down. The few days with Naruto were the best days of Loki's life. He was free to do whatever he wanted without the social restrictions of Asgard. Naruto always understood him like no other. It seemed that when he was with Naruto, it was fine to allow his childish side to run rampant and free. All in all, he had fun. In the first and second day, they went spying in Alfheim. The light elves were objects of great interest to him, and it seemed that Naruto shared his interest. Transforming themselves into the elves, they put to sleep. The 2 tried elvish cuisines, practiced elvish traditions, and ate elvish food. They visited the land of the trolls, Vanaheim, on their 3rd day. Sadly, they didn't manage to do much, as even with the transformation, they were quickly smelled out by the trolls' keen sense of smell. They were soon chased by a large group of trolls demanding their capture. Naruto quickly scooped him up and flew away from the realm, laughing at the commotions they caused. However, things went downhill on their 4th day when they visited Muspelheim, the land of the fire demons. The place was supposed to be filled with magma and heat, yet all they saw was water. Stepping down on the water, Naruto placed Loki next to him so that the boy could practice his water walking. After a few minutes of walking through the large clearing of water, Loki heard the sound of a large explosion. Turning to Naruto, he could sense that the blonde was also confused about what was happening. Quickly moving to the place of the explosion, the 2 saw a large black eastern dragon surrounded by flying beings. One of the flying women spotted them before she flew down to see them. Please help Lord Indra. So that's why the magic signature was familiar, Naruto muttered, scowling as he did so. The black dragon there is Vritra. It stole the water from our realm. Lord Indra is fighting it, but he could not release his full power in fear that the fire demons might take it as a threat and declare war on us. Indra seems to hate me though. I don't think he wants my help, Naruto replied. What do you think? Naruto asked Loki. Can we watch closer? The prince replied. He was quite certain that he would not be harmed. Naruto was always there to protect him. Sure. Naruto couldn't really see the danger of the dragon anyway. It was quite occupied with Indra. As the 2 moved in closer, They could see the black dragon spitting black fires as Indra countered them with his spears of light.
The battle seemed to be a stalemate until the fire coalesced itself around Indra to form a cage of black flames. As Indra tried breaking the cage, the dragon moved up towards him and swallowed the god whole. Naruto didn't know whether the scene was shocking or hilarious. He was deep in thought that he didn't see the explosion from the leftover flames darting towards them. By the time he did so, it had nearly hit Loki, who quickly put up a magic shield. The flames of the dragon was powerful and Loki was running out of magic. The drain from keeping the shadow clone on Asgard and putting up a shield was too much for his small body to bear. Squeezing his eyes shut, he prepared for the worst as he heard the sound of his spell cracking. When he opened his eyes, he was in Naruto's embrace. White wings covering and protecting the two of them.
Sorry, he heard Naruto muttered. Thank you, Loki murmured before magic exhaustion turned his vision black.
After the massacre of the elemental nations, there was nothing worse for Naruto than to see one of his precious people hurt. He blamed himself for his inactivity to form a protective barrier for Loki, but he also blamed the stupid dragon for spitting out those blasted flames.
Creating a clone to look after the fainted form of Loki, he spread his 10 pair of shining wings to their full glory. Soaring up to face the black dragon, he smashed his fist down towards its large maw. The beast growled in pain as its body plummeted into the water. The beast soon regained its energy and rapidly flew up from the water to face Naruto. Why are you attacking me? It growled menacingly. Well, that surprised the blonde. He didn't think that this dragon would be able to talk. Though Ophis claimed to be a dragon, she never looked the part. You hurt my friend and for that you're going to pay. You dare threaten this Vritra, one of the 5 great dragon kings. My flames shall drain you dry till ashes are all that's left of you. Vritra growled as the large beast spat out its black flame. It was when the flames made contact with Naruto that he realized what Vritra meant by draining. You're certainly not the only one who could use draining magic. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Hundreds of Naruto clones emerged from the smoke around the large dragon. They quickly made contact with the beast before their Rinnegan activated. Gakido. My magic. Why you? Vritra roared in outrage as his magic was being sucked away by the clones. Now have a taste of your own stupid power. Rasengan. Hundreds of blue orbs formed in Naruto's hands before they were pushed onto the dragon's skin. The impact of the jutsu made the dragon spat out the previously swallowed Indra before it fell into the water once more. The god seemed perturbed, but he quickly made sense of the situation and flew up next to Naruto. I did not ask for your help. Indra stated haughtily. I'm not doing it for you, though it seemed as if you needed it. After all, it swallowed you. The blonde retorted as Indra stomped the air around him. Vritra once again flew up from the water. The Rasengan seemed to have done a number on the dragon. Its scale showed traces of blood soaking out. So the Rasengan wasn't enough to finish it, huh? Naruto mumbled to himself. Raising his left hand, he gathered the wind elements around him to fuse with the human-sized Rasenshuriken. The dragon looked fearfully at the screeching chakra ball in Naruto's hand. Stop! 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 Indra yelled when Naruto was about to throw the Rasenshuriken at Vritra. Sensing the urgency of the Indra's scream, he decided to play nice and listen to the bastard once. Using the Preta path, he quickly drained in the energy of the Rasenshuriken. The dragon looked relieved, sensing that it had just escaped certain death. What? He was quite annoyed that Indra had stopped him from killing the dragon that hurt his friend. If you throw that thing, I'm sure that it will explode and emit out energy. The fire demons will use the energy release as an excuse to declare war on us. Indra cried. If what Loki had told him about the fire demons were true, they would probably use some stupid excuse to demand war so that they could expand their territory. He supposed that Indra could be logical when situation demands. So should we do? He asked. Large-scale attacks are out. Do you have any sealing magic? The Hindu god asked. The question reminded Naruto of Azazel's theory in sealing beings in sacred gears. Though sealing something as big and powerful as Vritra would surely create a large release of energy anyway. However, if they seal him in different sacred gears, that might work. I might. Can you keep hold of that dragon for a while? Indra nodded, accepting the fact that the two of them needed the other. Reaching out his hand, Indra created pillars of light that soon surrounded Vritra to form a large cage. The large dragon crashed itself towards the pillars, but the cage remained strong. "Stop him from moving!" shouted Naruto. The other god nodded as he created another set of light pillars that struck itself on the dragon's body and wings, sealing its movement. Naruto concentrated his magic to link itself with the heavenly system as Indra was combating the dragon. Feeling the equilibrium between the magic in his body and his magic in the heaven system, he unleashed the sealing spells onto the large dragon. Vritra growled in pain before its body broke away into various shards of light, then burst away from Muspelheim towards the magic circle on Earth.
Wiping the droplets of sweat from concentrating his magic, Naruto turned to Indra. "I suppose we work well together." Indra grunted in agreement as Naruto flew down towards the prone form of Loki. Lifting up the boy, he quickly unsealed the Bifrost key and fueled it with magic. "Wait!" Indra cried as Naruto was opening the portal. He turned towards the Hindu god who flew up to him.
"I apologize for my behavior the last time we met. I suppose I can agree to a non-intervention pact between our two factions if you are still willing to negotiate. Though make no mistakes that our Svarloga is still the only true heaven."
"Sure. Let's just say that that's our pact. I've got to get my friend treated." Naruto grinned at the god who simply nodded in acknowledgement before he stepped into the portal.
As the portal opened in Asgard, Naruto quickly stepped off the bridge and flew Loki back into the palace.
Moving into the derelict room they first met, he used Banbutsu Sozo to create a bed for Loki to lie on. He thanked the Rinnegan for improving his chakra control significantly as his activated the mystical palm technique to heal Loki's magic exhaustion. After Loki's magic had stabilized, Naruto created another clone that transformed into Loki to replace the boy's repelled clone. Deciding that it had been quite a long and adventurous day, he created another bed next to Loki and let sleep claim him. Loki woke up to find Naruto in a chair next to his bed. Desperately, he moved his small body towards the blonde as he squeezed Naruto in a strong hug. "I thought I was going to die." He bawled as tears dropped from his eyes. "I'm sorry. I should have stopped those flames," Naruto said guiltily. "No." Loki rapidly shook his head. It wasn't your fault. Thank you for saving me. No one had ever saved or protected me before," the prince said as he wiped away his tears. "I'm your friend, right?" Loki nodded at the blonde's question. "Well, I've told you before, didn't I? Friends protect each other. I'll always protect you as long as I live." The prince nodded once more before he asked,
"Is the dragon gone?" "He is. He won't hurt you anymore, all right?" Loki nodded as he hugged his friend, brother and protector once more. Loki's dreaded day finally came. It was the day where Balder usually teach his combat class. He didn't want to see the Warrior 3, nor did he want to see his brother. He wanted to explore more realms with Naruto rather than to learn the stupid physical combat class. The only good thing was that Naruto was also going to the class with him. Mephisto had expected the diplomacy to fail the moment the populace's face and body turned orange. He was quite certain that it was Naruto's work. No one else had such a fetish with the color orange. He certainly did not expect Naruto to wait patiently inside the room whilst they discussed their plans for the pact in the past week. He followed Samael as the angel, supporting his old look, walked into the throne room to see whether Odin has awakened. "It is unfortunate for us to inform you that the All-Father is still asleep. However, seeing that this would be the last day of your visit on Asgard, the Council offers you the chance to see how Asgardians are trained." "We would gladly accept your offer," said God Samael. Loki never thought that life could be so bad until he saw the 6 counselors walking into the arena followed by the ambassadors from Naruto's race. The old bearded man had a look of surprise when he saw Naruto whilst the red and blue-haired man simply groaned. Balder simply had to make everything worse by walking to the counselors and asked them, "Counselor Dellinger, are you here to check on your son?" My son?" The blonde-haired counselor made a look of surprise. "Yes, your son. Naruto. I'm afraid there might be some mistake. I'm not married." Balder looked surprised but continued on with his stupidity. "Well, Counselor Dellinger, I did not expect someone like you to be siring motherless children." The teacher tried phrasing his words as politely as possible, ignoring rude words such as, whore. "I'm not married and I do not have any children." Counselor Dellinger seemed to finally snap. Then who's that?" Balder pointed at Naruto's 12-years-old form. Awkward silence covered the air until Naruto spoke. "I'm an angel. I came with my god over there." The blonde pointed at the old bearded man.
Then why are you here?" "I was bored." His answer earned a deadpan from the red and blue-haired man whilst Loki started sweating.
The situation worsened when a herald ran in shouting,
"Counselors! Counselors!" All eyes turned towards the herald as Counselor Tyr commanded a report. Our mystic camera revealed a picture of a man carrying Prince Loki through the Bifrost portal 2 days ago. The herald said as he brought up a canvas revealing Naruto carrying him through the portal. Damn. Naruto must have worried about his condition so much that he forgot to use the transparency technique. Dellinger soon turned his scrutinizing gaze towards Loki. "Prince Loki, you yourself know that the punishment for using the Bifrost Bridge without the authorization of Heimdall or your father is banishment. Explain yourself." That's not possible. I was in Asgard. Fandral saw me. He shouted, turning his gaze towards Fandral. It was appalling that he had to rely on Fandral, but Thor was in the Goblin Forge when he was traveling with Naruto, so his brother could not attest his situation.
"Fandral?" the counselor asked. "I do not remember," Fandral said solemnly, but Loki could see the smirk on his face. "That bastard. He will stab that imbecile to death when he gets out of this."
"Prince Loki, even if you are a prince, you are not exempted from the law. Banishment. He was going to be banished from Asgard. This could not be happening. I do not know how you opened the portal without the Bifrost key, but dimension travel without permission is a crime. You are to be Bonnie."
"It wasn't him." The voice came from Naruto. "It was me. He was always here," he said as he released his transformation, earning several gasps from the children and counselors.
"That does not explain why you have the prince in your arms." Dellinger continued. "I befriended Loki for information. Loki told me that he believes that moving between the 9 realms required the magic signature of an Asgardian, so I cloned myself. With a proof there were 2 Naruto. Then transformed myself into Loki so that I would have the magic signature of an Asgardian. Using Henge, the clone transformed itself to Loki."
Loki knew that everything Naruto had said was total bullshit. As he was about to refute, Naruto brought a finger to his lips as if telling Loki to be quiet. He nodded slowly as tears formed in his eyes.
"Why you tricked the prince?" exclaimed a flabbergasted Counselor Tyr. "I did." The counselors were stunned by Naruto's proclamation. Dellinger was the first one to retain grasp of the situation.
"We demand you leave Asgard at once. For your cooperation in the past week, the counselors will agree to a non-interference pact." The other counselors nodded at the proclamation in agreement. "However, we demand you to leave Asgard and that your race are to be banned from entering Asgard."
No. He could not lose Naruto. He could not lose his only friend. He was about to shout out that everything Naruto had said was not true, but Naruto looked at him and shook his head. Tears were now streaming down his face. "We agree to all your conditions," said the bearded man as the red and blue-haired man whispered something into his ears. "You are to leave immediately. A herald had just been sent to notify Heimdall." The counselors left the arena followed by the ambassadors who motioned for Naruto to follow them. The blonde managed a small smile for Loki before he followed the bearded man out of the arena, leaving a tearful Loki. It is all right, brother. He shall not lie to you anymore, his brother said in an attempt to console him. But it wasn't all right. Not at all. No, it's not, he cried as he ran out of the arena, ignoring all the shouting from Balder and his brother.
He could not part with Naruto this way. He refused to part with his only friend this way. Dashing his way to the castle entrance, he saw Naruto and his two companions opening their wings. He rushed up to Naruto and enveloped the blonde in a strong hug as he bawled his heart out. There, it's going to be fine, Naruto said as he rubbed the Loki's back. The blonde plucked out a feather from his wings and handed it to Loki with a paper attached to it. I sealed the replica Bifrost key inside the paper. Banning me from coming here doesn't mean that you can't visit me when you have enough magic to activate the key, right? The feather is connected to my life. Just think of it as me when you're lonely, okay? Loki nodded as tears continued to flow down his cheeks. Remember that you're a brilliant boy and I'm incredibly proud of you. I'll miss you, Loki, Naruto said as he grabbed Loki into a strong hug. I'll miss you too, he replied. We'll see each other again, I'm sure. Loki nodded at his statement, embracing the blonde once more before he finally let go. He clutched Naruto's feather as he stood in front of the palace's entrance, watching his first true friend, brother and protector flew into the sky before he disappeared into the Bifrost portal. A Native American elder once described his own inner struggles in this manner. Inside of me there are two dogs. One of the dogs is mean and evil. The other dog is good. The mean dog fights the good dog all the time. When asked which dog wins, he reflected for a moment and replied, the one I feed the most. George Bernard Shaw. Mephisto. I'm really sorry about what happened, but I couldn't allow Loki to be banished from his home Dadbao, Naruto said as he turned towards the devil flying next to him. It's really fine, Naruto. I think a non-intervention pact was the best thing we could have between our realm and Asgard, especially when the All-Father is still asleep. I know, but I was responsible for them banning us. I'll make it up to you somehow. I'll keep you to that, but it really is fine, Mephisto repeated. To be honest, I expected the whole thing in ruins the moment you turned everyone orange. Gave the red blue-haired devil a surprised look. How did you know that it was me? He questioned. You're obsessed about orange. It was Loki's magic formula though. I only helped him clear the guards. It was Mephisto's turn to be surprised. Naruto guessed that the devil did not expect the small child to work out such a complex formula. By the way, Mephisto, I met Indra when I was traveling with Loki. He was less bastardy this time and we concluded a non-intervention pact as well. That simply stunned Mephisto. It was incredibly hard to get along with Indra, especially when the said god simply enjoys snubbing the other pantheons. Perhaps the art of politics was completely lost for Naruto. As they neared heaven, Naruto weaved Mephisto a protection spell that allowed him temporal entrance into heaven before the group entered the protection of the heavenly system. Upon landing on the tangible clouds, Naruto immediately went to the heavenly system. After the sealing Vritra, Naruto wanted to check the workings of the system to see if there might be any malfunctioning. Calming himself to be one with the magic of the circle, he closed his eyes and began to concentrate. He soon felt the complex mechanisms of the spell and the new addition to its workings. The sealing of Vritras was a success. The dragon now exists in the world through various sacred gear. It was strange to think that the various parts of Vritra now have their own consciousness despite the fact that they were once part of the same. The new addition did not seem to lower the efficiency in the running of the system by Michael, Gabriel and Uriel, so he supposed he could continue dallying elsewhere with Samael following him. Mentally congratulating himself on a job well done, he flew to the room where Mephisto was staying. He had not expected to find Mephisto and Azazel literally rolling on the floor laughing whilst Ophis looked amused. Regulus was in the room as well and the lion quickly jumped on Naruto, thoroughly licking his face whilst Naruto brushed his hand across the lion's fur. The moment Azazel and Mephisto noticed his arrival, The fallen angel and the devil laughed harder, raising his eyebrows to Ophis questioningly as if to saw, what the hell is happening, got him the answer. Using her small hands, the dragon god pulled up a drawing for Naruto to see. He was quite surprised but still could not understand the joke that Mephisto and Azazel were laughing about. The drawing revealed the old man Hokage, yet instead of having a small stump of a beard, the drawing gave the old man Hokage an incredibly long and fluffy beard. He supposed that it was quite funny, but it was clearly not that funny. That's you," Azazel barked out as he continued to helplessly laugh. Naruto could not understand why Fallen Angel would call him the old man Hokage. After all, it's not like he was going to grow old. Turning to Ophis, he simply said,
"What? Ah." Azazel went down to earth whilst you were still on Asgard. He revealed to the humans the light in the sky came from you. When asked how you look like, he gave a detailed explanation. The result is what you are seeing.
Well, things now clicked together. He didn't want humans to really worship him as God, but if they were to do so, clearly he would not want them to think that he looked as elderly as the old man Hokage. Azazel has another thing coming if he thought that Naruto would overlook this prank. Turning his gaze to the main culprit, he directed a stare emanating dark intense towards the fallen angel, who looked quite fearful as he saw Naruto walking towards him but was still laughing. Even Regulus, who was pushed off, started whimpering as the killing intent was released. Naruto's plan in torturing his own creation was, however, put on hold when Samael suddenly rushed into the room. "Naruto-sama, there's a visitor outside the protective circle." "Visitor?" Naruto turned his head in confusion. Visitors weren't common, and the other ones who came were restricted to Mephisto and the fallen angels who contacted Naruto through their crystals before they make their entrance. "Yes, Naruto-sama. It's the man you punched the day that we arrived here." "The man he punched?" Well, he did punched a few assholes here and there, but if Samael said that it's the man he punched on the day he first arrived, then there's only one possibility. "Ah, that guy who call himself Harma or whatever," he shouted, remembering the unpleasant encounter. "I think it was Hermes Naruto-sama," replied Samael. He ignored Samael's fixture of the name. He meant his name calling to be insulting, damn it. But again, it's not as if he cared much for Hermes or any members of the Olympic pantheon anyway. After all, Hermes was an asshole and Heracles was an asshole, so the other members were probably assholes as well. "Well, tell him that assholes like him are not welcome here," Naruto huffed petulantly as Samael nodded at his orders. However, before Samael left, he was stopped by a loud "Wait," coming from Mephisto. Naruto groaned as he saw a smile appearing on Mephisto's face. It was quite clear to Naruto of what the devil had in mind. "Since you're really sorry about what happened on Asgard, you wouldn't mind doing things my way this time, will you?" Groaning out loud, the blonde nodded. Damn him for always keeping his promises. "Samael, you wouldn't mind bringing Hermes here, would you?" he pouted, hearing Samael's shamelessly ignoring his initial thoughts on the matter. Samael had the decency to look towards him, asking for his permission. He forcibly nodded at Samael and the angel quickly left. Disloyal friends surrounded him, and Samael was his only true follower in this room. That was his cross to bear. His only true follower soon returned to the avenue with the Greek god. Hermes smiled in delight when he saw the group and quickly approached the team. The messenger smile, however, turned to a frown when he saw Regulus. The blonde supposed that news of how he stopped Heracles did reach the Olympic gods. Hermes quickly fixed his expression before proclaiming, "Lord Zeus demands an audience with you immediately. My liege does not appreciate your unbecoming actions towards our pantheon in our last encounter. However, my lord is kind and is willing to forgive if you heed his call immediately." Naruto wanted to say, "Fuck your lord," before punching the messenger into oblivion after hearing Hermes' irritating speech. However, it was his fault that their mission to Asgard failed, and staying calm was the least he could do in this situation. "We would gladly have talks with Zeus. Though I must ask whether this talk is limited Naruto or whether we are all welcome." The messenger seemed to be deep in though, though he quickly made his mind the moment he saw the feral snarl on Naruto's face. "Why yes. You are all very welcome," Hermes rapidly blurted. "Then shall we?" Mephisto stated as he stood up, gesturing towards the exit. Naruto looked towards Ophis, who shook her head to say, "I'd rather stay here," whilst Azazel took one look at old Hokage with a long beard, drawing, and started laughing once more. The Olympic deity looked puzzled in the scene but still nodded before he floated out, followed by Naruto, Mephisto and Samael, leaving Ophis listening to Azazel's laugh and rants.
Traveling to Olympus was rather easy. They simply flew over to a large mountain before Hermes opened a portal from it to lead the group to Olympus.
Olympus seemed to be a combination of Asgard and heaven. The architecture was quite similar to what Naruto saw on Asgard, however the buildings were on solid clouds. He supposed that they might be shameless copycats who saw the beauty of heaven and decided to copy that by creating solid clouds. Hermes quickly led the group towards a large circular room where 3 thrones were situated. The left throne was painted dark blue and was decorated with lustrous pearls and seashells. The center throne was pure gold and was continuously radiating light, and the rightmost throne was pure black onyx. Sitting on the 3 thrones were some of the weirdest figures Naruto had ever seen. On the blue throne was a muscular tanned man with black hair. He supported a colorful-looking robe that might be confused as a bathrobe. On the golden throne sat a muscular long-bearded, black-haired man. He supported a white and gold robe. On the black throne sat the most bizarre figure. The figure was literally a skeleton dressed in black robe emanating a visible black and creepy aura. "Welcome," the 3 of them voiced as one. Naruto's eyes visibly bulged simply because the skeleton spoke.
"I am Zeus and these are my brothers, Poseidon and Hades," said the man dressed in gold and white. Naruto nodded at the introduction before giving one of his own.
"I'm Naruto. That's Samael and Mephisto," he said, pointing at the angel and the devil. "I have heard of you," Zeus spoke. Naruto was not sure whether there was sarcasm in his voice, but he sounded genuine enough. "I must ask you the question I have been continuously pondering on. Why did not punched Hermes and why did you stop Heracles?" The god continued. His question simply caused Naruto's eyebrows to twitch in irritation. "I punched him because I was angry in your treatment of Prometheus and I was angry at his annoying proclamations. I stopped Heracles because the guy was a bastard, trying to hurt Regulus like that." His answer received a nod from Zeus.
"I do believe that Hermes has that effect on people and I always wonder whether my punishment on Prometheus was too hard. It was after all done in my anger. Your arguments for your actions against Heracles seem to be well justified as well. I suppose I could not hold anything against you," Zeus concluded. Naruto was quite stunned really. He did not expect Zeus to be so understanding. It was a good thing though.
"Well, thanks, but why did you call me here?" he said as he rubbed the back of his head, accepting the praise.
"I have heard news that you were contacting the various pantheons of this universe. May I ask why?" Nodding, he answered.
"Mephisto and I had an idea that magic should be shared between us and the humans. That way we could always be supportive of each other in our actions."
"Well, I believe it is a great idea. Encouraging friendships between all should encourage mutual aid, peace and prosperity. I see no reason why we should not." Zeus' words were cut off by the evil-looking skeleton that shouted, "Brother, you cannot do this. The other pantheon will view us as weaklings if you do. After all, he intervened in your judgments, attacked one of your followers and took away your offering." Well, when the skeleton said it like that, Naruto would obviously felt wrong. Hades was not done as he turned his glare from Zeus towards Mephisto.
"And you? I doubt that the morning star Lucifer would agree with your actions." Mephisto's face warped angrily with Hades' comment. "Morning star's opinions never reflect mine. We have never overstepped our boundaries between one another." "You think so? Even with your actions in being friendly with the other factions? I'm afraid even you might have overstepped your boundaries this time, fa 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 fa." Hades spoke as he looked at Mephisto with a creepy grin, made creepier by the fact that it was a walking skeleton that was doing it. "Enough, Hades," spoke Poseidon as he angrily glared at Hades. "We're here to find a solution for peace, not to wage war. May we have a few minutes to ourselves?" The god of the sea targeted his question at Naruto, who nodded. The door to the room then opened, a signal from them to leave. "What was all that about?" was the first question he asked Mephisto the moment they left the room.
"You do remember our conversation about devil kind, right?" He nodded and the devil continued. "Well, as I once said, the ideals of the four Maos do not reflect the ideas of all devil kind. The Maos wanted the exploitation of human and devil superiority above all other race and pantheon. Many, such as I, disagree, seeing the disadvantages of war. Yet the four Maos forms the devil's dictatorship and they are still the rulers of our realm. My actions in forming peace with the other pantheons go against the will of our rulers. However, they should not have known about our mission. Unless someone..." Mephisto was cut off as the door opened once more for them to move in. Seeing Zeus' resigned face, Naruto could predict the outcome of this mission as well. "I am incredibly disappointed to say that after our discussions, the most that we could offer you is a pact of non-intervention." As expected, but at least it wasn't war, thought Naruto.
"We'll take it," he said, wanting to quickly conclude the deal seeing Mephisto's distressed face. "We'll take our leave then," Naruto continued. Seeing Zeus nod, he quickly moved towards the exit with Mephisto and Samael. "You okay?" he asked Mephisto after they were outside the building. "I should go back to the underworld immediately." Mephisto's distressed face was not something that Naruto was familiar with. Feeling that there was something serious happening in the devil's world, he quickly decided that he should accompany Mephisto to the underworld. "I'll go with you. Haven't seen Sarah-chan in ages." The devil nodded rigidly. Again, it was a gesture that did not fit with Mephisto. The devil was always full of flair. "Would you mind if we simply open the portal to the underworld here?" His distressed cry caused Naruto to nod quickly. "Samael, you wouldn't mind going back to heaven alone, right? I'll follow you back later." Samael seemed to have sensed the distress from Mephisto as well and nodded as he said, "Not at all, Naruto-sama." Mephisto summoned his magic and opened a portal to the underworld where he and Naruto stood. They disappeared after they were enveloped in a blinding light. Samael felt uneasy. He never saw Mephisto-sama that distressed before. It was sad that he has to fly back on his own, but the pressure of the situation did force Naruto-sama to travel with Mephisto-sama. Sighing at the tension, he opened his wings. Before he took off, a cold feeling touched his shoulders. Turning back, he saw Hades' skeletal hands lying there. "I'm sorry, but Naruto-sama and Mephisto-sama had just left. It was not them that I want to have a conversation with. It's you." The skeleton spoke with a creepy nasal voice. Now that caused a chill to move up his spine. Whilst Naruto-sama could probably defeat this skeletal abomination, he could not. If this skeleton decided to be aggressive, he might perish. "Now lad, don't look so afraid." How could he not when the man he's talking to have hollow eyeballs, meaning none at all? "Your creator is quite the powerful one, is he not? I could sense it the moment he entered this universe. But I could also sense the moments when he is losing his powers. Even though he is still powerful, he is losing them here and there, is he not?" The voice inside his head screamed, "Yes." The creation to the heavens system drained Naruto-sama's power. Naruto-sama long sleep was a clear example of how tired he was, and that was simply its creation. Samael knew that Naruto-sama was also supporting the system by linking his magic to it continuously. Even though it was Michael, Gabriel, Uriel and occasionally himself who operates the system, the largest drain of magic occurred on Naruto-sama's reserve. "Naruto-sama's powerful. I doubt he'll have a problem in dealing with you," he stated after seeing Hades' eerie smile. Yes, he is indeed powerful. But what if there are more drains on his powers? His little projects here and there are always draining them, is it not? Hades knows, that much was clear. Yet the skeletal abomination was correct.
Could Naruto-sama further diminish? Could he protect Naruto-sama like this? He was quite strong when compared the other angels, but in the face of Hades or Mephisto-sama, he was simply too weak. How could he protect his creator like this?
Mephisto seemed distressed when he left. Do you want to know why? Hades spoke as he moved in closer to Samael, who was paralyzed in thought. I'll tell you. There's a war coming. True, your liege is powerful. But will he be strong enough to pass this war? Hades then moved his skeletal head to Samael's ear as he whispered. I can grant you power. Unlimited power. The power you need to protect your liege. You might not want it now, but there will come a time when you will. When that time comes, I will be waiting for you in Cocytus, the deepest part of the underworld. Hades' body disintegrated into ashes as he finished, leaving a stunned Samael pondering on what he had been told. The sight that greeted Naruto and Mephisto was not a friendly one. Mephisto's mansion was on fire whilst small fights erupted on the grounds between the guards and soldiers. What is going on here? Mephisto bellowed, stunned at the sight around him.
The fighting stopped as both the guards and soldiers looked to Mephisto and Naruto standing at the mansion's entrance. One guard quickly answered, Mephisto-sama, they are trying to kill you. Please escape. His speech ended as a spear was pierced through his leg. Shocked and angered at the soldier action, Naruto used Bansho Tenon on the man, dragging the royal soldier to him and Mephisto.
Explain. Spoke Naruto. The fighting around them seemed to have stopped as all eyes were on him and Mephisto. The four Mao's new edicts marked you as a traitor to the realm.
Edicts. Edict 6 declared that beings with white wings and beings with black crow-like wings are to be killed on sight. Edict 13 declared that devils are forbidden to have friendly contacts with other factions. Your relationship with this man broke Edict 6, and your illegal acts at making peace with the other pantheons broke Edict 13. Offenders of these edicts are enemy of the realm and are to be killed on sight if these refuse capital punishment. The declaration stunned Mephisto. Well, fuck your edicts, shouted Naruto. He quickly formed hundreds of shadow clones which moved towards the Imperial soldiers before draining them off their magic, causing them to all faint. Lucky that they were all so weak, huffed Naruto to a still stunned Mephisto.
Guess I'm not welcome here anymore. The blonde joked. It did lift up the mood and earned a resigned smile from Mephisto.
Neither am I, it seems, said the devil. So what are you going to do now?
Hide, I guess. I won't follow the Mao's senseless killings. I suppose I should return to heaven so that we could be prepared for these edicts as well. You're always welcome in heaven whenever you want to visit, okay? I guess I won't be seeing Sarah-chan for a while. Wouldn't want to cause problems for her and her family. Tell her I'm sorry, okay? Mephisto gave him a small nod and a small smile. I will. The devil said as he created a teleportation circle.
Mephisto-sama came to various cries of Mephisto's household servants. Please take us with you. We do not wish to follow the new Maos. We refuse to follow them even if we were to become outlaws.
Mephisto accepted their cries and created another teleportation circle for them to use. Turning to Naruto once more, the devil gave a small wave and a small smile. Till then. The devil spoke as the magic activate, transporting Mephisto and his servants to a safe destination. Till then, whispered Naruto as he teleported back to heaven. Is Ophis here? Naruto asked the moment he arrived back on heaven after his disastrous trip to hell. His scowling face betrayed none of his emotions.
She just went back to the dimensional gap, Naruto-sama. She said something about keeping her home clean and that Yankee's dragons are desecrating it. Samael replied, surprised to see him back so early.
He supposed that was a good thing. Sure, she may be a super powerful being, but under her know-it-all facade she simply is naive.
He did not want her to see the terror of war. The terror that he himself saw firsthand. Whilst there was no war yet, with the devil's aggressive stance on the matter, one would be erupting very soon. Seeing her mood the last time he saw her, she probably won't try to confront Great Red yet, so there was nothing to worry. War would be over soon, Ophis would be back, He'll see Sarah-chan again and Loki would be able to enter Earth soon. Everything would be well.
Sentimental thoughts were unreflective of the situation. Everything was not well.
He had initially thought that the war between the devils, angels and fallen angels would be a swift affair. He predicted that the devils would try and storm heaven. An event he could probably overcome with his overwhelming power. That was not to be. In fact, there was no war at all.
The devil's aggression warped out a sort of guerrilla warfare, a war targeted on humans. Naruto supposed that this was the devil's way of scouting the power and resources of their enemy. Theoretically, he should not retaliate, as he would be playing into the enemy's hands. But in practice, it was impossible for him to ignore the slaughtering of humans.
Try as he may, he could not save all humans from the devil's hand. The devils simply had more in their numbers, making it impossible for the forces of heaven to counter the devil's offensive.
Worst was the fact that the angels did not have much combat ability. The ones that did were the angels that he created himself in memory of his comrade without much help from the heavenly system.
All in all, only about 10 of them were combat ready whilst the rest were more oriented towards healing and mending. His 4 most powerful assistants could not help due to the continuous strain from supporting the heavenly system in creating more angels. The situation was quite bizarre, especially when more angels were needed to combat the devils. The process was slow and long and Naruto could not find a way to sort of this problem, until a rather bright idea popped up, at least he believed so. Naruto-sama, please reconsider. You cannot do this, was the shout that Naruto heard from Samael the moment his friend knew of his idea. Ma, it won't be a problem at all, Samael. I promise. His attempt at calming Samael was in vain, judging from the fact that Samael now seemed even more distressed.
But Naruto-sama, it would be a problem. You already spent half of your powers in creating and maintaining the heavenly system. Spending any more would put you in danger. Samael cried, worry written all over his face.
Danger from what? Naruto asked. He was sure that Samael was holding something back from him. The angel was quite easy to read after all, though he simply did not know what. Nonetheless, he was sure that Samael was loyal to him and would never betray his ideals, therefore any suspicions towards Samael was unfounded. Don't worry. There's still Office if anything go wrong, remember. Not that it will, Naruto said, continuing his attempt to calm Samael. But she went back to the dimensional gap. Samael quickly shot down his excuse as he waved his hands around frantically. Well, there went the easy way of calming Samael. Naruto huffed as he reached out his hand towards Samael's and grasped them. You're still here, right? I'm sure that you'll do whatever it takes to keep me safe. Samael's mouth was opening and closing at rapid speed, sort of like what you would see when staring at a goldfish. But Samael tried to refute, but in the end he finally said, I understand, Naruto-sama. Naruto grinned at his success and nodded as he proceeded to the heavenly system, leaving Samael to stand alone, deep in his own thoughts. Accessing the heavenly circle with his power's core, he let his power slowly seep through it. It was like an insect bite at first, but it became more painful with time. He could feel his muscles contracting as the pain slowly swelled. Could his powers be waning? Was Samael correct that he was somehow in danger? He couldn't believe so. Even if his lack of power had caused the pain he was feeling, he did still feel near unlimited power radiating within him. He truly couldn't be in danger.
Though the process was more draining than Naruto had thought, he was sure that the result was worth it. After all, the common angels now have a mechanism for defending themselves. Both humans and the angels would now be more protected.
The result was what Naruto had predicted. The devil's offensive was immediately deterred when the common angels could now retaliate to their assault.
Sadly, more protected did not mean that humans were completely safe from the devil's assault. The truth that devils outnumbered the angels remained. Even with the sacred gear granted to them by the heavenly circle, they could not combat the devils. The problem lied in the humans' belief that they couldn't combat the devils, hence made it impossible for them to utilize their sacred gear or in many cases, bringing them out. He let out a resigned sigh as another of his idea popped up. Samael would not be happy about it, so he'll just keep it a secret. Using Banbutsu Sozo, he forged the first sword followed by the second, the third and fourth and the fifth ultimate weapon. I want the four of you to lure a horde of devils to the humans' capital. Naruto pointed a location on a holographic map he magically created as he directed the instructions towards Michael, Samael, Gabriel and Uriel. The four of them were asked to visit his quarters in order to help him on a project, as they were now more available ever since the strengthening of the heavenly circle. Master, may I ask why? Said Gabriel. Her face was filled with question. Sure, it's for these, he replied as he materialized 4 swords and 1 spear in front of his 5 creations. What do you mean, my lord? Uriel asked. Well, it's quite clear that humans do not have the incentives to defend themselves, so I'm giving them one. His reply did not seem to quell the curious looks on his 4 angels, so he continued. We're slaying devils with these. We'll be doing it in front of all the villagers, then we'll drop them to earth. I'm sure with a weapon to slay devils in their hands, humans would find it in them the ability to confront the devils. His revelation was met with a few oohs and ahs before the 4 of them said,
As you command, Daddy, Naruto-sama, Master, my lord. With that, all but Michael left.
Daddy, you're not telling us everything, are you? Michael inquired as he glared at Naruto suspiciously.
What do you mean? He stuttered a little as he replied, an action reminiscent to that of a child stealing sweets. The 4 swords are powerful, but in the face of that spear, their powers are hardly special. It's as if the spear is a great sea whilst the swords are small lakes. Plus, your eyes and your halo, they're losing their brightness. Daddy, what have you done to the spear? Michael inquired. His face tells Naruto that he would not leave until he received his answer.
The blonde chuckled at his first creation. As perceptive as ever, aren't you, Michael? He commented and continued. I placed a part of my soul in it.
Michael gasped at his reply, his face revealed nothing but shock. But Daddy, you just strengthened the heavenly circle with. It'll be alright, besides it was my intention since the start. The 4 swords were just trial products whilst the spear was the peak of perfection. I mean, you need a super strong weapon to give you the will to fight, right? Oh, don't tell Samael or anyone about this, they'll exaggerate things. And no, there will be no complaints. What's done is done. He cut Michael before he finished his sentence. As you say, Daddy, Michael said solemnly. Fear was in his eyes, but Naruto knows that the secret would be kept. Truth be told, he was glad that it was Michael rather than Samael who had noticed the spear. Ever since their visit to Olympus, Samael seemed crazily concerned about him and he did not want to worry Samael any further. Regulus, who was curled up in the corner of the room, watched the scene with a worried gaze. His animal instincts told him that danger was approaching despite how unlikely that might be. Seraphal Citri was not a happy devil in all manner of speaking. She couldn't believe that the Devil's Council ruled over by the 4 Mao Satans could be so stupidly short-sighted. Lucifer, Beelzebub, Leviathan and Asmodeus claimed that the angels were a threat to the devil as they were protecting humans from making deals with them. Therefore the angels should be eliminated. In her mind, it was the devil's side fault. It was under the 4 Satans. Orders that forced devils to only make harsh deals with humans, and by harsh it meant that the said human would not survive after the deal has been done. This generated a reactionary attitude from the angels who were protecting humans, leading to a full-out war between the factions. Why were the angels protecting the humans? She had no idea, thought it might be because of the loving attitude. After all, Naruto was one of the kindest person that she had even known and he was an angel. But it made her question whether the angels were kind or was Naruto an exception. It did not help her ire that the idiotic new edicts drove away friendly devils as Mephisto and friendly angels like Naruto. Was Naruto her friend or was he more than a friend to her? Every time he's near, her heart went doki doki. Was this what devils call love? She blushed, squealed and rolled around on bed as she thought. Her happy thoughts ended the moment reality crashed down. Who was she joking? She had not seen Naruto the moment the war started. The affairs of the devils worsened when the angels suddenly had a power-up. Sure, the angels were quite powerful in their own rights, but their power was restricted to healing and only a few were able to attack. However, the power-up gave them enough power to pierce the devils with their light spears. It was quite troubling for the devils indeed. Winning against an opponent who could both attack and heal was not an easy feat, especially when the devil's healing abilities were subpar.
Depressing sunk in further as she recalled the orders of the four Satans. Take control of the devil's troops and deal with the angels near the capital, was what the four Satans had told her to do. She did not like killing, she truly didn't, but what was she to do? The Satans rule the realm with an iron fist, and anyone who openly disagreed with their views were terminated before their families soon followed. The House of Murmur and Oribus went bankrupted before they were executed for treason after Abelard Murmur and Troyard Oribus spoke out against the Satans' rule. If she refused the order, she shuddered to think what would happen to the House of Citri. She dragged her body off her bed with a sigh. There was no other choice for her. Orders were orders and she had to follow them. Strengthening her resolve, she exited her room. Babylon was regarded by the humans as the greatest city that was or ever will be. The architectures of Babylon dwarfed the creations of other cities around it. The prosperity of Babylon was unparalleled. Its most apparent landmark was a colossal tower at the city's edge that spiraled up into the skies. It was apparently the dream of the architect to reach heaven with the tower. Sadly, the construction took too long and he died before his dreams were realized. Naruto personally was glad. The tower would never reach where heaven was, and if by chance it did, the barrier to stop humans from visiting heaven. The populaces were screaming in fear as they saw four hordes of devils nearing their cities. No, it was not Naruto's plan to massacre the people. He had already weaved a protective spell around all of them, albeit one which they could not see. He shot a ball of light upwards as he saw the four devils' army regrouping. It was a sign for his angels to begin their operation. In a flash of light, Naruto and his four angels made themselves visible before they started fending off the devils with the 5 divine weapons.
Other than a stray blast from Naruto that caused the colossal tower to collapse, the battle was success. The devils, in no better word, were slaughtered.
In a final flash of light to extinguish the devils, 5 weapons were dropped down to earth, causing resounding clanks in the midst of the silence. Seraphal thought that this battle would be her end. It was clearly a trap. A 10-winged angel appearing in your base before she fled. What else could that be if not a trap? Sadly, she was not in full control of the troops. The dumb Decarabia outranked her and threatened to report her actions if she did not follow his orders. She gritted her teeth at the thought. She should have seen sense and refused. This battle was trip to the grave for all of them. It should not have been possible, but somehow the angels duplicate themselves. She had thought that the ability belonged exclusively to Naruto, but apparently other angels have it as well. The ridiculously powerful weapons they were holding did not help her cause. She was battling a female 10-winged angel that did not disappear when her attack hits, leading Seraphal to believe that this was her real self.
The sword the angel was holding was even more ridiculous. The ridiculous amount of holy aura radiated from it was enough to instantly burn away any lesser devils. It made her feel as if the sun itself scorched her skin. Each slash seemed to tear away the very dimension they were fighting on, and with each move Seraphal felt her power wane more and more. Power-wise, she felt herself more or less equaled with the angel, but when the angel was equipped with such a weapon, she could not help but lose. Her consciousness started fading the moment a holy blast connected with her stomach. She felt herself falling slowly down the human's capital. A brilliant light took over her sight. Instantly she felt the devil's army disappear. Damn Decarabia and the 4 Satans, she thought as she continued her downward flight. She wanted to see Naruto, at least just once more. She wanted to see the man who showed her kindness. She did not want to disappear without her feelings for him untold. She did not want to die. Her thought did not seem to matter. The end was near and that was all.
She closed her eyes, awaiting the ground to impact her body or the light to burn it away. Strangely, those did not come. She soon realized that a familiar warmth enveloped her body, that the body was being carried.
She saw him as she opened her orbs. It could not be anyone else but him. Those spiky blonde locks, that serene, calm and cheerful smile, that warmth that she feel in her body as his arms hold her close. It could not be anyone else but him. Naruto. She whispered. This it for today guys, this was What If Naruto Absorbed the Shinju and Became God. Naruto X High School DxD, stay tuned for more.